Oh, okay. Hi. What's up? How's everyone doing? So they can't hear you. Okay. How you guys doing? Nate, you were joking about me hosting your show. Well, I guess I'm hosting. Hello. What is up, guys? Um, then we're gonna talk about Nintendo stuff here. Yeah, you do that here,
All
right?
right. We're good now.
Hey.
We're good.
Hey.
We're good. I changed it to the default mic, so I shouldn't have a problem. All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nintendo Pride Podcast, episode 16 of the, I guess, rebooted podcast as we call it. Yeah, we are having a good time today. I am your host with the most, the Mr. Nintendo Pride. You probably know me pretty well. I am Nathaniel Rumpel Jantz. To my left and your guys' right is Mr. Eric Moore.
Hello.
And yeah, dead center, like over here, is Mr. AndresRestart. He's our special guest tonight.
Holy cow, that's
Whoa.
impressive.
I'm not worthy.
What's up, guys?
Anyways, so yeah, he's our special guest today. If you would like to go follow his channel, and please subscribe to his channel, follow him on Twitter, all that. We have links down in the description for all of that. Today we got 4 lovely topics for you guys. First off, before we do that, I want to say welcome back, AndresRestart. I haven't seen you on the podcast in like 2 months. How's it
Yeah,
going?
it's been a little bit, right? I'm good. We talked a little bit on Sunday. I was been busy doing stuff, being away on vacation and all. But I'm back and I'm pumped and ready to go. It seems like we're like maybe a couple weeks away from an Nintendo Direct potentially. So like
That would be
potentially
I'm
we got
excited.
a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, we always have stuff to talk about. So
Yeah, we got
it's
a lot
gonna
of stuff
be
to talk about. And I will note, if there is time today, we will be taking a few fan topics right from the chat towards the end here if the time allows. All right. Big shout out, by the way, right off the bat with the stream. We got Logan LeBlanc with the $2 super chat. Says this is the Triforce of YouTubers.
Oh.
Well, I mean, technically you have a YouTube channel because you have a YouTube account.
Yes, yeah, technically.
No uploads.
Yeah,
Wait,
no,
I don't think you have any
no,
uploads.
I like
You probably have some subscribers though.
Maybe.
Impressive. You probably
That's
have like
possible.
2. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, you did dab for the people the one
did.
time.
I
So
did.
I mean, you probably gained
did.
some subscribers from that.
Yeah.
All right.
Just dabbing along.
Just dabbing along. Anyways, all right. So we're just gonna hop right into the topics. We have a lot of deep stuff to get into, but before we dive into say some stuff with Nintendo Direct and all that jazz, I know some people are really curious about that. Today was the start of Gamescom. So Gamescom. I feel like I have to say this every time because when I mention it to people on my channel, I was like, what the hell is Gamescom? Okay, well, it is essentially E3, but on the other side of the country, or the side of the world, I should say. It takes place in Germany. Technically, the in-person event is in Germany. I don't know how big the in-person event is this year. But for our purposes, the in-person event's not as relevant, although maybe it will be this year if there is one because we didn't get an in-person E3, so if there's any demo gameplay that comes out over the next week, that's because they actually got to go in person and play them. But I have no idea with COVID and everything what's happening with that. But what we do know is they're still doing digital events. And they kicked it off today with Opening Night Live hosted by Jeff Keighley, which was like a 2-hour event showing off a whole bunch of games. And most of the games aren't things that we're necessarily going to talk about here. Yes, there was Halo Infinite. Yes, we got Call of Duty Vanguard.
Nate,
and a
they're
whole
saying
bunch
your
of
mic
other
is
stuff.
too low.
What?
They're saying your mic is too low.
My mic is too low. I mean, I could change that. Or Andres is too loud.
I don't know.
I mean, either way. We'll crank it up, though. We'll crank it up. Test.
That means.
That's as loud as I can go.
Well, that sounds very loud.
Yeah, that sounds very loud. So instead, I'm just going to bring Andres down.
Yeah.
So we're all at equal.
Yeah. I mean,
Something like that.
if I was gonna say if you're quiet, that means I'm extra quiet.
Yeah, because Eric's really quiet. Anyways, we're just going to go with this audio setup. I hope we'll adjust Andres' audio as he chats because I can see the audio levels here, so I can know if he's too loud. So here's what happens with Gamescom. Gamescom is an event that happens in Germany, and Opening Night Live from Jeff Keighley happened today, 2-hour event. A whole bunch of games were shown off. The games were primarily obviously for other systems. Nintendo does not partake in Gamescom, just like they don't partake in Tokyo Game Show. They pretty much, it's E3 and Nintendo Directs. That's where you get most of Nintendo's news besides the random social media updates they do. So obviously for Nintendo fans, it's always like, oh, there's not really much of a reason to pay attention to Gamescom except for third-party games that might be coming to Switch. And we got 3 big ones that happened today. But before we touch on those, some people might be wondering, where the hell is Sparks of Hope? Sparks of Hope is up for Game of Show at Gamescom. Wasn't shown today. Well, Gamescom's a 3-day event, so this was just day 1. So there's 2 more streaming events happening in the next couple of days.
Telling me there's a chance.
Telling me there's a chance Sparks of Hope news is going to be dropping here in the next couple of days, maybe even gameplay.
Oh.
So
You need to keep me updated.
So-
The second that drops, I want to watch it.
you need to watch my channel because that's where I'm going to be talking about it.
I'm working.
See, he just self-admits he doesn't watch my content. What a bastard.
Yeah, you're right.
You know it's a YouTube video. You can watch it anytime.
Hey,
It's on a live stream.
I do take the podcast, throw it on a different tab, and play that through the full.
Anyway, so he likes to listen to himself.
I mute it.
So he tries to
Gotta
help
get the
out
watch. You gotta get the watch.
Gotta get the watch time.
The full watch time.
The full watch time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so we got 3 games that big games that happened today. And those 3 games, basically, we got an update on the Ninja Turtles, TMNT, Shredder's Revenge. We got an update on that. So people really wanting to know what's happening with that game because it finally looks like the best Turtles game we probably had since the old school Turtles games in the arcades and all of that. Turtles in Time and stuff like that. So anyone who likes the old school Turtles, that's what this game is targeted at as a beat 'em up game. Then there was a new announcement today, a surprise announcement, Marvel's Midnight Suns. That was a very shocking announcement and also doubly shocking because it's coming to Switch. But maybe it's not so shocking when we consider the type of game it is. We'll get into that in a moment. And then the other game was, I forgot. Oh yeah, Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. And that was another game people were really looking forward to because it's looked fantastic the entire time. Eric and I got to see the behind-the-scenes demo at E3 2019, which they still have not shown all the content from. So we still have seen more of the game than you have. Nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, no.
They're just not showing it.
Yeah.
The disappointing thing with all of these games is obviously they're all coming next year. 2 of them early next year.
Well, that's good for me then.
Oh yeah, 2 of them early next year. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is coming in spring, and March is when Marvel's Midnight Suns is coming. But what's weird is the one we thought might get shadow dropped here in Gamescom in terms of, hey, it could be done, was the Ninja Turtles game, and that one just has a 2022 date with no specific timing, which means it might not even come out in 2022. We'll have to wait and see. But let's just kind of go in order of how they were unveiled. So the first one that was unveiled that's coming to Switch was Marvel's Midnight Suns. Now the trailer for it, it's in-engine, but it's not in-engine gameplay because it's an RPG tactics game in the style of XCOM because the team leading it is the same team that actually created XCOM. So if you like XCOM, or if you haven't played those games, if you like Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, that's what this is. You like that, or if you haven't played that, if you like Fire Emblem, that's a similar type of game. Though that's the kind of game that this is going to be, except it's going to be of Marvel characters. They introduced a new hero that they got approval from Marvel to use and all this. So it's going to have its own unique story, independent of the comics and all that, which I think is maybe a good way to go because you start getting to the comic stuff, then people start comparing to the MCU and just kind of separate from that and do your own thing. I think can work. Depends on the storytelling and the writing and all that. So it's probably going to be very heavy, like story-driven, like most of the RPG tactic games are. But I kind of want to gauge your guys' interest in this because I would really like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. That's feels like the last major Marvel game we got on a Switch system. And now we got this. And I actually really enjoy this kind of gameplay. The XCOM gameplay, the Mario Rabbids. I really like this style. Fire Emblem Three Houses was great. There's just something about this works. It worked way back in the day and it still works now. And we actually have a Switch exclusive sort of tactics game coming up because Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot's coming. And that's exactly the same type of game, the same type of gameplay, just in a different visual style, different, more military-esque, more modern military-esque kind of gameplay. So I'll start with Andres. What are your thoughts on this game? Because we don't see gameplay of it till next week. That's one really weird part of the reveal.
Yeah.
No gameplay till next week. So the gameplay is ready, but we can't see it now for some reason. I don't know what's up with that, but what do you think?
Well, in general, when I see trailers that do not have gameplay, I don't care at all. But that's a generalization. This one, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is pretty hype. Like
Yeah, they're
I
hyping you with the
love
characters and everything, right? Like it's really
yeah,
cool.
I love the aesthetic, I love the vibe, I love the direction they're going with. I love the musical choice as well. Like it was very
And to be clear,
it was pretty
I
hardcore.
expect this aesthetic in all cutscenes. By the way, if they don't use
Yeah.
it, I will be very disappointed.
Yeah, so from that perspective, I'm totally feeling this. I'm vibing with it. But that's really all I can say until I see gameplay.
Yeah, I think the excitement comes from the fact
that's
that
it.
this is the team that did XCOM, and XCOM is a highly rated series.
Sure.
Really, really good. So there's like a trust factor. Oh, we trust you guys
Yeah.
to do this right, but we still haven't seen it. You know?
Yeah, I want to see the actual game. I personally don't like it how a lot of games are usually just shown off with like a story thing and that's it. Like it needs to be a little bit of a mixture of both. Especially if we're gonna get gameplay next week, like why even separate it like that? I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me.
So like,
But
I'm guessing.
anyway, I mean,
cinematic trailers, not a fan, huh?
no. I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions. Like the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, that to me was an exception,
But
right?
you could
But
argue
that's
there's
because
gameplay in that trailer.
I mean, with Zelda, they always use in-engine cutscenes, and when
I
they
would
say in-engine,
say-
it's actually an engine.
Well, as I say, the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer actually felt like real gameplay. Whereas if you think back to 2014's Breath of the Wild trailer, that wasn't actually gameplay. That was scripted. That was more
It was
like
more like it was more like what they were targeting, right?
yeah. It was like an
and
idea board.
I would say it was a fair approximation because in some ways it's less impressive, in some ways it's more impressive, right? But in general, I don't like just cutscenes that don't show gameplay in like initial trailers. It's not that I don't like cutscenes, but if I don't know what the game is, I don't know what the game is.
Yeah.
So
Well, that was the thing.
You
Like,
know.
they showed this trailer, and you're like, I don't know what this is. And then they get to the end, and like, oh yeah, it's like people who
Yeah.
from XCOM, and it's a tactics RPG. It's like, but I didn't get any of that from the
I
trailer.
didn't got no.
So it's like
that.
if you're just someone who woke up today, like, oh, there's a new Marvel game, and oh, it's coming to Switch. You watch the trailer. What is this?
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
doesn't tell you what it is, and you might just think, oh, because you think Marvel. Well, the last Marvel game to come out was like that Avengers game.
yeah.
And that people ended up not liking the direction it took with microtransactions and all that. So they started thinking, oh, is it just like another one of those? Now, I think what's interesting is it is coming to Switch, and Switch does not get a ton of multi-platform third-party support in terms of, the multi-platform.
Yeah.
Like, you see new games coming to PlayStation 5. Oh, that's not going to come to Switch. But this one is. And I think that's an interesting choice. And I think it's also interesting considering who's publishing the game. Because one of the consistent supporters of Switch has been the NBA franchise in 2K. 2K NBA 2K keeps coming every single year. Next-gen platforms are out. We still have the new NBA game coming. So 2K is publishing this. And so I feel like that might have had a little bit of influence. I also think when the developers of it, Firaxis, looks at sales of similar games on Switch, all of them sold really well. So I think there's a strategy here where, you know what, it's a tactical RPG. We can downgrade the visuals, but based on the style of game it is, I don't know if it's going to matter. I kind of think this is just going to work. But again, we have to wait till we have the damn gameplay. I agree with you.
Are we
that
sure we're getting Switch gameplay next week or just gameplay for? Yeah.
It's just September
You know.
1st gameplay. No idea what platform for.
Yeah.
I assume they're going to show it in its best light, or is there going to be individual trailers per platform, like some companies do?
I don't know.
We don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
Gameplay debut 11:30 on the first. Okay, but like,
Okay.
what platforms?
Did they not pay
like, it's
the,
going to look worse on Switch. I understand that, but like, how much worse? I just don't know.
It
they not
depends,
give
right?
you guys
Because
that
there are
thing
some
that
games
thing?
that.
Oh, go ahead.
What were you saying? No, like there have been some multi-plat games that have come to Switch, and you're like, oh, this looks fine. Like for example, Starlink. Like I have no problems with how Starlink looks visually, right? But then you look at something like, say, for example, Wolfenstein 2, and sure, it looks good, but it also you can kind of see like the constant blurriness of the game. So whenever I think back to my memory of playing Wolfenstein 2 on Switch, it was just kind of a blurry mess. And maybe I'm misremembering it a little bit, but my point is that there have been some multi-plat games that have held up relatively well, and then others that have kind of maybe not held up really well by comparison. There is a little bit of variance there, so we'll do that. That's another thing to kind of wait on gameplay for this, right? Because it might not look that good on Switch. I don't know, but aesthetically speaking, the trailer, the concept, the whole idea behind it, I think so far so good. I'm intrigued, and normally I'm not intrigued by just straight up cutscene trailers.
And I will say, I don't like. So I like cinematic trailers. I think they're cool, as long as it's accompanied by some sort of gameplay. Like at E3, a lot of times you'll get a cinematic trailer, but if it's of a game that's going to have a demo, well, it's accompanied by gameplay, so then it's cool. What I don't like is when it's just like this is basically a cinematic trailer. They call it in-engine, which makes me hope that this is what cutscenes will look like. But maybe not. Like how many times we get in-engine and then it doesn't really look like that at the end, unless you have like the PC version with an RTX 3090 or something. So in general, I'm not a fan of basically, I don't really want to see games until gameplay is ready. Like even when we think of Nintendo fans, think how frustrating it is for people looking forward to Bayonetta 3. Announced back in 2017 with just a little cinematic thing. Here we are 4 years later, still haven't seen any sort of trailer, gameplay.
Not really much.
I mean, I'd almost take a cinematic trailer at this point just to know the game's still there. Although
Metroid 4.
Metroid Prime 4 example, just a logo drop. They did the same thing with Smash back on the Wii U as well, just a logo drop. The game hadn't even started development yet. Like, I don't like. I mean, yeah, cinematic trailers you can argue are better than just a logo drop. Like as an example, Dragon Age 4, that's another one. They just dropped a logo and then we haven't seen it since. I don't like the logo drops, obviously, unless I will give a caveat to logo drops, but you better come through. Is if you do a logo drop on an IP that's been dead for like 20 years and you just want to let people know it's coming back. I'm okay with that to an extent, but you better
look at
through.
Metroid Prime 4. Like, just the confirmation that Nintendo was developing.
Yeah, and that was
Prime
the idea
4
with Prime
huge.
4. Yeah. That was the
Right.
idea. Confirm it's coming back. But technically, we had Metroid games that weren't necessarily so old at that point. It's just we didn't know the Prime series was going to come back. Now, I know they said
the way
after
we
Other
wanted
M they're
it.
going to shelve it, but then we had Prime Hunters.
I mean, technically, when we got Metroid Prime Federation Force, we should have known that they weren't done with the Prime series, but they
we were mad. We were
had
too
not
angry.
given us like a legitimate Prime
We're
game, not a
angry.
spin-off Prime
We're
game, which is already a spin-off series, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's strange, but you know, and going back to the point though, we'll see when more gameplay comes up, we'll see, but cautiously optimistic is the best I can sort of give you with that trailer.
Basically, this is going to be a topic on next week's podcast, I'm sure, because we will have the footage then. So we'll end up revisiting this next week. But I want to get Eric's thoughts on this because you actually, I know you like this style of gameplay, even though we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So and I also know you like Marvel, like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
we're day one, baby.
Yeah.
At least I am.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's my daughter's birthday too, so I got to somehow finagle to do that and day one. But I will make it work because that's how much I love it. Maybe I'll even drag her to the movie, although she'll probably get scared. I don't know. Honey, the Green Goblin's coming on. Cover your eyes. Anyways, so what are your thoughts? Are you excited for this?
Yeah, I mean, I loved XCOM. Played the crap out of it. Never really played much for XCOM 2, but still, I mean, I heard it was a decent enough game.
Played the crap out of Mario plus Rabbids.
Yes, I did. And so this type of gameplay I like, kind of that turnstile.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
we don't actually know.
Yeah. Well, my question is, did they forget to pay the guy? Did they have a cinematic guy working on one trailer and a gameplay guy working on another trailer? Did they forget to pay him?
So, like, I get what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to create, okay, we announced this game, and we're trying to create an event.
Yeah.
And I understand creating the event because this game comes out in March. This is the only one we have a month, for when to expect it. But the thing is, I don't get why, if the gameplay is going to be shown next week, I get hyping people up to see the gameplay, and I am hyped to see it. But like, also, you couldn't have gave just a smidge tease.
Yeah.
Like even just make it like a freeze frame stop in the trailer where like they do this move and all of a sudden, but bam, for like 4 frames, if you freeze it, you could actually see like a screenshot of gameplay.
Yeah.
And then that builds all the hype to see the full gameplay reveal, right? And they didn't even do that. They just kind of said, hey, we have a new Marvel game in the work. Hey, it's by a team that you guys all know. They made a franchise you guys all love. Trust us. It's going to be great. See you next week.
I had no clue it was going to be in the XCOM style because.
Well, it was a surprise announcement.
was nothing
They
there, too.
literally kept this on the wrap. There was no rumors about this or anything.
But
so.
until you told me, I was like, oh, it is? Didn't get that out of anything. But okay. I mean, sure. I'm excited
To
for it.
continue that trailer conversation, what kind of trailers do you prefer when a game is first being shown off?
If I don't mind cinematic, but I do prefer it actually have including gameplay in it.
Combo.
Combo. I like the cinematics. They're pretty. They're fun. They're great.
And they cost a crap load of money.
Yes, they do.
What I don't like are the cinematics that aren't actually part of the game.
No, yeah, that too.
Those are weird. You get like a cinematic trailer, and it's like, but that cinematic's never in the game. And to be clear, we say that as how do Smash Bros. Characters get announced?
Well,
We see gameplay, yes, but like they're announced with cinematics that are never in the game.
well, again,
That costs a
there's-
lot of money.
Again, there's
But Smash is also
exceptions to rules.
yeah. I would like. Am I given the exception because it's Nintendo?
Maybe. But at the
Well,
same point in time, Smash Bros is awesome. But
There's a
That's
couple
what I'm
things
saying
with that.
though. Like, and they do give gameplay usually like right
Yeah,
after.
right.
So like,
There's always accompanied by gameplay, and the gameplay is not shit. Like
Right.
the Smash Ultimate is a good looking game, so there's that, right? There are the trailers where you get like a pretty good looking cutscene, and then the actual gameplay is booty. Like that's not okay, right? But Smash looking game is just the cutscenes they put together look really good. And there's also variants with that, right? It's not always the same kind of style, even though there is like a general style they usually go with. Occasionally they do something a little bit different depending on the character and the direction, right? Like, for example, for Pyra and Mithra, they literally use the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 engine. So, I mean, that is arguably gameplay, just not for... It's an in-game,
not
it's
for
in-engine
Smash.
gameplay, but for
maybe
Xenoblade 2, right?
Xeno 3 preview, maybe.
Yeah, but that's something we could talk about later. But it's fine. Well, also they make it clear they use text at the bottom. It's not like there's no debate that it's gameplay, right? Like It is what it is. It's pretty clear, and there's a long history of Smash doing this already, so people know what it is. It's different when you have a trailer that comes out and you have no idea what's going on, and they just give you like cutscene stuff. And either A, they don't give you any gameplay, so you don't really know if the game's worth it or not to you, or B, they give you gameplay and it's nothing like what they were showing you at all. So I think there's a difference. I think Smash gets a pass.
Smash gets a pass. Yeah, but there is irony in what I said. I don't like cinematics and trailers that aren't in games, and then I just went over. But I'm okay with it with Smash. But why am I okay with it? There's a lot of reasons I could say I'm okay with it, but also it would be cool if that cinematic was in Smash. Like maybe that is a criticism of Smash. Maybe when they do these introduction cinematics, when you unlock that character in the game, they should unlock it with that cinematic.
yeah.
I mean, it's just a little extra flair for people that didn't see the trailer. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
I mean, or they can package.
they don't have to.
Sakura
Or
has
they can
this.
package it in
Cinematics are
somewhere.
just video clips.
Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, the problem is that Sakura has like this weird sort of habit he's built up now because if you go back to Brawl, all of Subspace Emissary and all those cutscenes were uploaded onto YouTube and other internet
he's
sites,
pissed.
and Sakurai didn't like that because people could just see the story he built on the internet for free as opposed to just buying Brawl. So ever since then, his sort of like perspective on creating cutscenes for Smash Brothers is if we're gonna make this, it's gonna be public already. Like it's not gonna be a nice surprise to have in the game. But I think there is still some of that, like in not Subspace Emissary, but World of Light. Like there is some cutscenes you can unlock, but of course, if you search on YouTube, you can still find it. But that kind of plays into why we don't really get like a lot more surprise sort of like reveal trailers in the actual game because he realizes people are just going to upload it onto the internet anyway.
Yeah. Either that or they could put it in like its own little menu option to watch cinematic trailers for the characters.
Yeah.
Things like that. As you
It is
unlock the
interesting,
character,
right?
you
Like-
unlock the cinematic trailer
Sure,
with it in a cinematic section in a menu or something.
Sure. I mean, just like they have all the music in a playlist and all that. All right, so moving on to the next big game that was at Gamescom, and this is one that we've had gameplay of twice, well, technically 3 times if you were at E3 2019, was Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga set for spring next year. I mean, what is there to say? It's a Star Wars game. You can go anywhere. It's all 9 movies in one game. It's a massive game. They showed how you move between planets and everything. Looks really cool. Really really makes sense because I feel like the planet movements are going to be based on what section of the story you want to go to. But it looks like you can go to any of them anytime, so it's kind of like an open-ish game. Really cool. Visually, just looks massively impressive. Granted, we haven't seen Switch footage yet, so not going to probably quite be as crisp as this, probably in a lower resolution or whatever. But man, does it look good. The comedy's on point because Lego adds their own comedy into the story, which that's one of the reasons some people like to play it, to see the comedic, the Star Wars comedy you can throw in there. They had one scene in it where when Luke was trying to convince that he's good enough to become a Jedi to Yoda or whatever, and he says something really stupid, and then you had Obi-Wan or whatever, Ben Kenobi or whatever, just sitting over there in ghost form, just face palming, and then just going away.
And then they had the one where I think it was Luke that told I'm guessing it was Rey to reach out her hand, and all of a sudden Chewbacca just pops up and like she just like starts rubbing his head against her hand. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, so like
this is great.
So like, and I'm really into that kind of cheeky comedy like that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it looks like to me, and again, I could speak from someone who has seen this game behind closed doors. It might be the. I hesitate on the second part, but I think it might be the greatest Lego game ever made.
I would agree with you.
And I've played a lot of Lego games. I think it might be the greatest one. It's definitely the biggest, for sure. And I think the best looking. But it might be one of the best Star Wars games ever made. And there's some good ones. There's KOTOR. Jedi Fallen Order was really good. There's been some really good. I mean, even the Squadrons game. That last year, that was really good.
And they're bringing back pod racing. In it
yeah, bringing back pod racing, and there's been some really great. The Empire Strikes Back came back in the day. That was really good. Like there's been some excellent, even going back to the Rogue Squadron days. There's been some excellent Star Wars games. OG Battlefront. But man, something about this game and the amount of characters and the size of the planets and the worlds and like the space combat looks so good. It's one of the best space combat I've seen in space games, period. Like something about this gives me the idea that this might be the best Star Wars game ever. Now that's just, haven't played it yet. We kind of assume how it's going to play because we have Lego games. We know how Lego games play. But I want to throw it to you guys because that's my perspective. What are your guys' thoughts on this game? And do you even care? Are you even excited? Is it even something you even are you contemplating picking up, whether on Switch or any other platform?
In general, I don't play Lego games, so it's kind of one of those things where it looks neat. But I mean, I have. It's not like I'm not aware, right? Like, there's been a lot of Lego games that have come out over the years that have been like open world or big adventures, and they're fairly ambitious and they look pretty good. And I'll tell you, when I see the footage, it looks good, and I am a fan of Star Wars, and I would love to sort of explore through the Skywalker saga. I don't know if I feel like getting it. I don't know. I've just never really personally gotten into Lego games, but again, it's not because I think they're bad. I just never got into them.
But you might.
I might, but they'll have to do more to sell me on it personally. So.
Well, what would they have to do to sell you on it? Because you pretty much saw a bunch of story elements in combat and Legos. So, like, what do they have to do to sell you on it? Because it's pretty much.
I think for me, there is and this may sound terrible, but there's an inherent turnoff that they are Legos. So that's just always been like, okay, they're Legos. I don't feel like playing this. But I totally acknowledge that all the Lego games are pretty good. Right, and like if I were to play, I've tried a couple and they're fun. I've just never felt like buying them. Right now, if I see some good reviews for this,
you have preconceived. Notion
there's very clearly a bias. Like I'm not even.
It sounds like all the people that say Nintendo's for kids. There's a bias. You see the visual of Mario and Splatoon, and you're like, "Yup, that's kiddie."
Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's definitely that. But it also, like, in general, when it comes to licensed games, I also have hesitance because there is a long history of licensed games just not being as good. Not to say that there aren't, because we've seen a lot of licensed games be pretty good. Look at the Batman games, for example. It might be some of the best licensed games ever made. But there's just these biases, it being a licensed game, it being Lego, those things sort of hold me back a little bit. But the idea of exploring through the entire Skywalker like saga, like that is kind of exciting to me. But I'll
Even
also
if you
tell
don't like
you,
the new movies, the old movies are here too.
yeah, so all of that is pretty cool. I'll tell you that I was also initially intrigued by Dragon Ball Z Kakarot because it's telling the saga of Kakarot, Goku all throughout. And that was very interesting to me. And this is kind of maybe a little similar in that way. But I also didn't get around to get to playing that game, and that game was good too. Because part of that is the other issue there is that I already know the story. So there isn't
I
like
haven't
that
seen the
much
final Star
of
Wars movies, so I don't actually know how it all ends. The
Okay,
9 movies.
well,
So
I did. So there is that other element there, right? So there's the Lego bias, there is the just licensed game bias, and then there is I already know what the story is bias. So all those things kind of like hold it back for me, right? And on top of that, like I mean it's competitive. There's so many games out there that I want to play or need to play. So, there's that going as well. I'm not saying I won't buy the game, but I just being frank, I
what
probably
are you
won't buy the
playing in
game
March?
unless the reviews are like insanely good and I have nothing else to play.
I know that's why I said, what are you playing in March? Because right now we don't know what else is coming to Switch in March.
I
We
don't
have
know yet.
guesses.
I don't know yet.
We don't know.
Could be Monster Hunter Rise DLC. We might get paid
Could be.
DLC a year afterwards. Could
Legends
be
Arceus DLC.
I mean, I feel like Legends Arceus might have to wait a little bit longer, but maybe not.
Sorry,
Right? That's a
sorry.
possibility.
Arceus.
I don't care. Um,
That was someone on his podcast.
that's a whole other conversation.
Reaming us for it.
Although Legends Arceus comes at the end of January, so like conceivably that could carry me into March potentially. It does depend. Um, never mind backlogs, but then I mean if we're just thinking about like Nintendo, like there's a chance that Nintendo releases another big game in March.
something in
We don't
March,
know what that is yet, right? It could be Splatoon 3, it could be the Donkey Kong game, it could be Xenoblade 3, it could be something we don't know about.
Yeah,
So,
because I feel like the
I mean,
timing of Pokemon is meant to carry February and then drop another game in March. So we'll have to wait and see.
yeah.
Eric, what are your thoughts on Lego Star Wars?
More than likely day one purchase.
Yeah,
I love.
dude. When I was sold when we saw the
That
saw the behind the
Yeah.
scenes demo at E3 2019, I was like, dude.
Yeah, right.
Like, cause I used to be really into Lego games, but after a while they start to feel a little bit samey. So you're like, okay, whatever. So they announced it. I'm like, okay, all 9 movies. That's intriguing, but whatever. Then we saw the behind the scenes demo, and I'm like, this looks like unlike any Lego game I've played.
Right. No, for sure.
This is, and I love Star Wars. As I say that, and I haven't seen the final movie. It's like I'm waiting to see if there's going to be an episode 10. Because if there isn't, I'm going to salivate and wait as long as possible to watch episode 9 because I kind of don't want it to end. I think that's the way I am right now. I don't, and I heard that people don't like that episode, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I still got to see it.
Yeah.
I got to see the conclusion. It's just I'm waiting to see if there's more beyond it. And there's going to be spin-offs and other things, and maybe they get rid of the episode numbers and they never do episodic again, and that's fine. That's fine. The spin-offs have actually been really. I've seen like all the spin-offs. They're really good.
I love the Disney
Rogue
Plus
One
series.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Like all the spin-offs have been just utterly fantastic. So maybe that's
forward
where
to Obi-Wan.
Disney's forte is,
That's gonna be
telling
hype.
the side stories than the main story. But
Well, I want to see like a new story become like the next big thing, right? Like
it
the
feels
Sky,
like
you
they need
could
a new
argue
story. I
that
feel like they
the
need to like
episodes 1
fast
through
forward
9
in
are
time,
this.
like 10,000 years, and let's get something new.
Like I want the next Skywalker saga, right? It would be the Skywalkers, it'd be something else, but I would like to see that. That would be very interesting. And also tell you that my favorite of like the 3 different trilogies, I've always had an affinity for episodes 1 through 3, so the middle trilogy, which is confusing. And the reason for that is because that world has more going on in it in terms of there's a lot more like living characters still. There's still a lot more of that civilization. Episodes 4 through 6, a lot of it's sort of dead. And also because the movies, when they were made, there were technology limitations, right? So there's only so much they could sort of show off and convey. It would be interesting to see like a Star Wars series that sort of shows off the full like breadth of like the history and the lore and the civilizations and characters and the species full on, and really dive into that with modern technology. That this has nothing to do with video games, but just
no.
putting that
Well,
out there.
and to comment on general, because like I've heard some people when I even talk about this game, like, oh, why do I care? Disney ruined Star Wars. There's been a number of comments for that, and I go like this. Look, Disney bought out Marvel, right? And they're doing all those movies.
Lucas.
No,
No,
Marvel, right? And everyone seems to be thrilled with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general. There's some hit and misses here and there, but in general, people seem to be really happy with it. And they started that basically all over again from fresh. There were other movies that existed, but they just rebooted everything and have done a fantastic job. And when we think about the Star Wars movies that people like that have come out in the last 10 years, they've been a lot of the side ones that aren't locked into the main core story, which to me makes me feel like, look, you can get mad at Disney all you want, but also Disney's trying to follow up something they didn't create. If they're allowed to get creative freedom to tell new stories and go in new directions, I think they can make amazing Star Wars movies because we've seen them do that with the side ones. So if they can, as you said, a new Skywalker saga, but Disney actually gets to start it from the very beginning, that to me is really, really exciting for the potential future of Star Wars, just like it has been for the MCU. Everyone's been, oh yeah, like I remember all the controversy, oh, you're not going to use Andrew Garfield from The Amazing Spider-Man, and now look at what Spider-Man's doing now. Like, clearly, when they're allowed to fully control everything from the very beginning, they know what they're doing with these IPs. They know what they're doing way better than Marvel movies were doing before Disney got involved. And Star Wars, Star Wars wasn't exactly doing too hot before Disney bought it. So, like...
Lucas in general wasn't.
Yeah, Lucas in general, like, and it's just like, now they own the Indiana Jones IP and they're making another one of those. Yeah, but eventually they need to reboot that IP because Harrison Ford is old as shit. And I love Harrison Ford, and he's amazing and forever, just like, Robert Downey Jr. is always going to be Iron Man to me. Eventually they'll reboot the character sometime in my lifetime, I'm sure, at least one more time. They'll probably reboot the whole MCU at one more time. That's some big event that resets everything, and then there's a whole new characters, and that's fine. That's the beauty of the MCU is that you can literally do any event, and all these characters go away, and we have all new ones.
There's multiverses in. I mean, it's.
Haven't seen Loki, have you?
Huh?
You really need to watch Loki on Disney.
I really like Loki. Loki's good.
Yes, there's multiverses, all right. Yes,
so
but
all you
just
have
watch.
To do is just say you're in another universe of Marvel. Congratulations, there's your wipe.
Watch Loki. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, they don't have to have something big happen.
Just there's something in particular that happens to the multiverse that you need to watch.
A couple years ago, they were joking around about multiverse, and now they have multiple movies or TV series that are like tackling multiverse as an actual
Loki was
plot
literally
device.
all about the multiverse, yeah.
Yeah.
And then now obviously we have the it happening with the Spider-Man movie and everything. So
yeah,
it's very interesting. I'm gonna leave it alone because you love Marvel, and I don't care. If you don't have a Disney Plus account, use mine.
Yeah.
Watch it. It's $5 a month.
Yeah.
It's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Got it. And then you even argue, was there multiversal crap happening with WandaVision a little bit, depending on how you want to look at things. And anyways, so the point is, Lego Star Wars looks really cool. We're really into it. We're gonna get it day one. Andres is like, IP interest high. It does look halfway decent, but it's Lego, and I'm biased, so I'm not sold, and it's really hard for them to ever sell me on it. So maybe if I just happen to have nothing to buy and I'm at the store.
Yep. I mean, that's it.
It's kind of like, it's got to be like a spur of the moment.
Sorry, I'm a hardcore
fan,
Nintendo fanboy. I'm not a hardcore Star Wars fan.
It's rated higher than
Star
Breath
Wars,
of the Wild. Some crazy 97 rating.
I haven't bought like any licensed games in years. It's just it needs to be really good. That's just my thing. I'll tell you this. I've been wanting to get is it Fallen Order? The one that had like some ex Retro Studios devs work on it.
Fallen Order.
Right?
What about Fallen Order? Sorry.
Was it the?
Yeah, I've been meaning to pick up that one. So like occasionally I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
like I
Star
don't
Wars game?
want to get around.
Well, Squadrons is technically the newest Star Wars game.
Sorry.
The thing is, I mean, if your PC is capable, you can just get Game Pass and just play it for cheap.
Yeah, I could do that. Oh, I did like Battlefront. Occasionally, I like licensed games.
Well,
but,
like Battlefront 1 and 2, like even though there was all the controversy, they still were pretty solid fundamental gameplay underneath it all. It's just
And
they
the-
didn't, you know, they
the
EA'd
classic,
it.
the classic Rogue Squadron ones were pretty good. Yeah,
Even Squadrons was actually pretty solid. But I feel like EA feels like they need to make it up to Disney because Disney yanked away the IP exclusivity because of what they did with Battlefront. It's like, yup, and if you keep messing up, they're going to yank away the games you are making, so... So now we're getting good Star Wars games. And now they're being made by multiple companies. So
I wish the NFL would do that too.
oh, well, you know, you could dream of having 2K back. Hey, you know what? No, don't dream of it because guess what? College football's coming back by EA, and you're going to be able to bring your rosters into NFL again. So
No, I just want the competition so they actually make Madden better.
they weren't making Madden better back when they had competition. Like the training camp that we love so much, it was the exact same training camp in like 7 straight Maddens.
You're not wrong.
So,
But the one that we
what's the
wanted-
name of the
Anyways,
Harry
wait,
Potter
wait.
game that's being made by Warner Brothers or being published by Warner Brothers?
what?
Like the big ambitious Harry Potter game that's being published by Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, depending on how it goes, maybe I'll get into it. But
yeah,
again,
that one does.
there's-
Again, it looks really good, but it's like we haven't
But-
quite seen enough.
But that's the thing with most licensed, they hype you up because you're a fan of Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Captain America, and then the game comes out and it's at best average. Like, you know, like that's
And
kind of like the
yet-
commonality.
I can rattle off for all these IPs almost a dozen really great games made for all of them. So it's kind of like
Right.
they exist now,
Because
there
there's so
IP
many
trash.
of them.
Yeah.
It's like you continue to throw shit on the wall and eventually some of it sticks. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying that like there are good licensed games. We've mentioned a few already. It's just
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
they're
There are
not.
ones that stink less.
So speaking of licensed games, Ninja Turtles is coming back.
That's an
TMNT
exception.
Shredder's Revenge.
Great segue.
That kind of like, you know, it sort of harkens back to like the old like TMNT games
When
back
all
in
the
the 90s.
licensed games were good back then.
Yeah.
For TMNT.
so-
For TMNT, all of them were good back then.
I was gonna bring up.
Multiple
like, I think-
arcades,
My
Turtles in Time.
first-
Even the Game Boy game was really good.
My literal first video game memory is TMNT on Super Nintendo. Like that was playing that with my dad. Like that was my first video game memory.
So-
And then the next memory is Mario 64. So like I'm interested in this. You know,
So-
that is something I am interested in playing. It's gotta be, I knew I kind of wanted it from day one already, so this is not
So
really,
is this going to be a day one get for you?
probably.
I mean, I don't suspect it's going to be a $60
If not day one, it's gonna be a, oh, this is available, I'm gonna buy it kind of thing. You know, like when I find myself with time.
I mean, if you grew up playing Turtle games and you remember the classics and you love them, I mean, this has to be pretty exciting because we haven't really had one like this in a while. We've had attempts at all these other types of Ninja Turtle games using the more modern cartoons and all that. None of them have really been great or sat well. And then this company comes out and says, look, we're just going to make the Turtle games that everyone loved because we're in the world of indies and no one cares about the visuals. They just care about...
That's
and by the way,
actually the visuals they
the
expect.
visuals actually look kind of good, but they look good because... Hey, look, we're used to buying games that look like this.
Especially from this.
And
this.
if we're going to get games that look like this, why can't we get... We haven't gotten a good Turtles replacement beat 'em up. It just hasn't happened. We've had other beat 'em ups, but nothing quite feeling like Turtles. And then, obviously, I guess the big news for that today was that April O'Neil's playable, and she was never playable before.
Yeah.
So what do you guys feel about that? Because some people were like, April O'Neil's playable, that's cool, but like it would have made more sense to have Splinter. So...
That just because she's playable doesn't mean there can't be other playable characters.
Well,
Right.
yeah. Well, no, you're correct. But a lot of people are saying, but the obvious choice would have been Splinter. And the one criticism I read out there, I found it kind of fascinating because in the history of Turtles, whether it's the movies, the stories, the video games, April O'Neil's the damsel. So we took the damsel away, made her a badass that drops mics on people and kills them somehow. I just mic drop moment. Oh, foot soldier dies. I mean, I guess getting some. You know what? My mic is pretty heavy. I suppose if I drop that on someone's face, it could break. It could break a face.
I really
It could break.
Yes.
I really wish it would burn.
And not these little mics, but she's got like the full on big one like that over there. I dropped that on.
Like our
Oh yeah. You drop that on someone's face. I mean, it's gonna do some damage. So that's fine. And I think it's. I mentioned in my video today that like, it's kind of a cool thing. I like because she's doing it like a mic drop, bitch.
But
like
what
it's
would have
so
been even
cocky.
better? What would have been even better though is if they burst into flames, so it's like a giant burn. Drop the mic, burn.
And they showed some cool abilities, like one ability showed, and this is probably gonna be true for all the turtles too. There was a combo ability where one of the turtles grabbed her, spun her up, and rolled her. And like, I was like bowling them down. I'm like, that's really cool, and that's only possible in a video game. But I guess you do in cartoons too, because that always suspends reality in those. But I also go, but April O'Neil's never really been that badass, and now she is, and I don't have a problem that she is, but also like. Out of all the characters, it's her.
I mean,
And granted, that means she's not the damsel in the story.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just, how did she learn how to be as good as the turtles? Is basically what I'm trying to get. Like, I'm trying to understand from a lore perspective. The turtles are good because Splinter taught them, and Splinter is a former karate master who had accident happen after he lost a shredder, or whatever. All this stuff happens, right? If you guys know the OG Ninja Turtle stories on why Splinter's a badass, he wasn't always a freaking rat, pretty much. He was actually literally a master. So he's the one that trains the turtles. That's why they're so damn good. And that's why Splinter, even in his old age, can still kick some ass because he's the one who taught all the original moves. How the hell does she learn? She didn't grow up. She didn't grow up learning. So like
she went on the spiritual journey.
A spiritual journey.
Remember on the
multiverse. They multiversed it, and in this
on the
multiverse,
farm?
she's a mutant too.
Yeah, right.
And grew up.
She took some classes. She's fine.
So like I don't know. For me, it's more of a logic thing. That I understand some of the complaints. So there, yeah, there's some. It kind of breaks with lore, but you know what?
The one
it still looks badass.
The one I want to see, and maybe Splinter's gonna be DLC type of thing. Maybe they'll add him. But if they do that, they better make some Casey Jones downloadable character too.
You see, Casey Jones being added
stick,
in.
just why?
But again, there's probably going to be DLC characters on the line.
Yeah.
Or it's possible they're unlockable in the game.
Yeah.
So like, because we've already seen Splinter and one of the cutscenes was fighting, so it's kind of like, well, I'm sure at some point you unlock Splinter or whatever. So I am curious. I'm curious what the setup's going to be for it and everything. Obviously, you fight some of the classic bosses and stuff. That's going to be cool. So I don't know. For me, it's like a day one get, and for Andres, it's a when I remember it or when I see it, I'll get it. Eric, what about for you? I mean, you played Turtles games like me when I was we did a shit out of Turtles in time.
Yeah, we did.
Still today, my favorite Turtles game.
Yeah. It's probably going to be like Andre. I'm probably not going to realize it comes out.
When I remind you.
Oh, yeah, hey, it's out. Oh.
And again, we don't know the pricing on it either. We don't know how long it is. I'm sure it's going to review well. We'll have to wait and see if the gameplay holds up. Looks
one
like
of the things
does,
that like if I want to like have like a good night with someone like just to play co-op, that would
yeah, it might be something I might even be able to get Yulia to try out. Even though she's not.
It'd be a fun drinking game.
But honey, just button mash. You're fine.
Yep, pretty
just
much.
Button mash. You'll be good. I'll carry us. It's fine. I'll take care of the technical bosses. You take care of all the foot soldiers. We're good.
You're right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited for that game. So those were kind of like the big ones. There was a few other ones out there that are also coming to Switch that were kind of mentioned. But for the most part, those were the major ones. There was obviously a lot of big games there, Call of Duty Vanguard and all this other stuff. And again, I thought Gamescom itself was cool. But this kind of leads into the next topic. So E3 in trouble. And this has been kind of something that's been percolating in my mind since E3 happened this year. And for those that saw my live stream for it, you already know my overall thoughts on the E3 show.
Dumpster fire.
But setting that aside, I'm not going to go on some big long-winded rant like that.
Oh, come on.
Some people want it because it's not actually in the final video. It's cut off because it happened after the 12-hour mark, and
it was
YouTube
even
only
cut.
keeps 12
even
hours.
the water bottle was cut off from the cutoff.
Yeah,
I don't understand
weird.
how that worked. But.
Anyways, so look, obviously this year was not a great showing for E3. Nintendo was fine. Microsoft was fine. The overall E3 show, not so much. Verizon 5G can fuck off. So, like, E3 was, like, we streamed the whole thing. It wasn't good. But I'm watching this, right? And I'm not able to stream it live. I got to take my kids to do all their school stuff today. So I'm sitting there, and I'm checking in on the news. I'm checking in on the live, and I'm just like, okay, this feels like the Summer Game Fest show that happened before E3. And I feel like, being a pretty solid show. And so was this. And Gamescom has an excellent reputation around it when it comes to the show floor experience, and they don't have this controversy over media and fans. They made it work from day one. There was never a media exclusivity, fan exclusivity. From day one, they made it work. And Gamescom has a sterling reputation at this point, and every presentation Gamescom has is focused on games, and it does really, really well. They don't have any of this fluff. They don't get advertising partners that have nothing to do with gaming. Just doesn't happen. Everything is built around games, and they seem to do it what E3 wishes they could do. But yet E3 is still considered the bigger event. It gets Nintendo. It gets Microsoft. It gets all the big companies. Not as many companies overall as Gamescom get, but it gets most of the big boys except for Sony right now. So like E3 is considered the bigger event and usually has more of the game announcements. More game announcements happen there than at Gamescom. But obviously, E3 was in a little bit of trouble before the pandemic. Wasn't like it was, going to go away at the time. The attendance numbers were still really, really high. They were making a lot of money on those gamer passes at $250 a pop. They were doing fine. They still had the major companies doing press conferences, good or bad. But after E3's digital showcase, where they've had, realistically, over a year to prepare for something like that, which it felt like they didn't really take a year to prepare. They took like a month. It's what it felt like anyways. I'm sure it was maybe a bit longer than a month, but it really felt like they threw it together last minute when they realized, we're not going to be able to go live this year, so we're going to throw this together last minute. And they just drew in all their partners because the ESA also runs the ESRB and all that. So they have a lot of partners. There's a lot of people from Nintendo and Microsoft on their board. And I feel like after watching Opening Night Live, and just the reputation Gamescom has, I'm starting to feel like E3 is in serious trouble of not being able to recover from the show they had this year, combined with other things like Gamescom. Not necessarily Gamescom specifically, but even you think whenever PAX happens again, sterling reputation with PAX. Okay, yeah, they haven't done some in-person, but great reputation. Everything else has excellent reputations. Mm-hmm. Even QuakeCon, right? Or even like BlizzCon, all the controversy around Activision Blizzard, but the actual BlizzCon event, pretty sterling reputation. Like all these other gaming events seem to just do everything better, and the ESA doesn't learn anything because they seem to care more about partners and the money those partners will pay for advertising than they actually care about giving us a good event. So do you guys agree with my thought process, I guess, that E3 might be in trouble, and it could be like, I think they'll attempt to do an in-person event again, maybe next year or the year after. But if that doesn't go well, is it kind of like E3 might just go away?
I don't know.
Or do you guys disagree? Like, maybe you think E3's fine, everything's good?
Honestly,
I have a hard time believing that we're gonna no longer get like the big events in that early part of the summer anymore. I think it's kind of like you were mentioning how like E3 still kind of has like the big gets. I feel like a good analogy is kind of like the Los Angeles Lakers. So if you pay attention to like basketball analysts, for the last few years everybody's saying, the Lakers, they can't do this, they don't have the coaching, they don't have the staff, they can't get all the good players. Yet what's happening? They're getting all the good players. They're still in contention. They're back. And a lot of that simply has to do with the fact that the Lakers, unlike the Clippers, have like this legacy, this history. People know what the Lakers are, right? They are a winning franchise. They are a championship franchise. There's that allure. So what happens? Players want to go play for the Lakers, not the Clippers in general. So you look at E3, right? And the analogy I'm trying to make is that there's this history of companies showing up at E3, putting out games, and the public, everyone sort of sees that. Everyone sort of has come to expect there to be big game announcements early summertime. If there's any sort of like event that's like a mainstream event that people that aren't big gamers that would sort of like recognize, it would be E3. So, E3 compared to other things, I feel like they still have a huge advantage. So to think that they'll be gone in the next year or two, I'm skeptical of that. Now,
what
can we
advantage do you think
continue
they
to
have?
trend?
Because this last year, if you separate out Nintendo, which could have just did a Direct instead, if you separate out Microsoft, which already has their own digital event as well, without them, there was nothing at E3.
So part of that though has to do with COVID, right?
But
We're
all
still
the
sort of
companies
recovering from that.
But all the other companies still showed their games in other events. Summer Game Fest got a crap load. It had way more actual game studios involved in it than E3 did. So like all these other Gamescom.
Okay, so I guess
Call of Duty Vanguard,
the
you know.
so the thing is, right? When I think of E3, I think of E3 as just like that time, that window. So Games Fest to me was just kind of the Summer Games was just really part of it. But if you're talking about like the actual company, like the actual like
event of E3,
like that, I still don't think it's going away. Like, is it going to become less significant over time? I mean, we're sort of seeing that already, sure. But I also don't think that right now is necessarily telling us for sure what direction we're going in. Like, I think we need more. I think we need more
E3 had
evidence.
Verizon 5G.
Yeah.
Gaming's better with Verizon 5G.
It is.
You know what your problem
how,
is with your licensed video games? They don't come with Verizon 5G. Your experience would be better.
That's right.
To be honest,
I don't know.
The Switch might be better with Verizon 5G.
I think in general, just like moving forward, like as a fan of gaming, there's always going to be something around the early summer, even if it's not called E3 anymore. So I'm not really worried about that. But if you're talking about E3 as the organization, they still, I think, have that advantage because of the history, the legacy they have. But you're also right in saying that, you know, there is more competition now. It's not as clear cut as it was before. But I also feel like it's still a little bit of a small sample size. We're still kind of going through the pandemic, so there's still a lot of impact there. Let's see where they are a couple of years from now.
Sure, I hear you on that part. And my whole counter argument is E3 was in trouble before the pandemic. So like this isn't even a new thing. E3 itself has been struggling for almost a decade.
I mean, Sony left.
So yeah, Sony left. They can't convince Sony to come back. EA left. They can't convince EA to come back. Other studios are finding out, hey, we're getting just as much attention and sales on our games without you. Nintendo has been one of the big supporters in Microsoft, and like those feel like the last two bastions that are making E3 even have relevance. Mm-hmm. And PC Gaming Show, I guess, too, for those that are really into that. The PC Gaming Show actually had just had its best show. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to forget that was actually officially part of E3. And that actually
I guess the other thing to consider is that you've been to E3 physically. I've never been to E3 physically. I've only experienced it over the internet. So there is that kind of consideration, right? So your perspective is very different from mine. Like, to me,
your perspective,
when I think of E3, I just care about getting gaming news.
E3 perspective?
Growing up, I always dreamed about going to E3.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm like, like, do I like the idea of going on a trip and getting like close, like inside access to a couple games?
Like we got to see Lego
sure,
Star
that
Wars behind closed doors last time.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like, would it be nice to see stuff like that to get some hands-on experiences of games? Like, I'll tell you that I really desperately want to play Breath of the Wild back at E3 2016. You know, like that would have been really nice.
It was.
Right?
It was amazing. It was our first E3.
Or like, say we get Metroid Prime 4 at next year's E3. I would love to be there to play it, right? Like, that would be amazing.
Amazing. And Nintendo's booth is always kick-ass at E3.
Especially when there's also new hardware, too, so you can actually get to experience how that new hardware handles and plays particular games. Like, that's exciting. But E3 isn't necessarily the only place to do stuff like that. And for everything I've heard from E3, you have to wait in really, really long lines. You have to be surrounded by a whole bunch of people. They may be sweating. They may be smelly. They may touch you. And I may have to be sitting in a line for 3 hours just to play a game for 15 minutes.
I will say I haven't had an issue.
And it'll be really loud.
So in my experience, I haven't had an issue with the sweating and the smelling. It actually isn't that bad. I think since they let the public in, it's become more people actually know that we should wear deodorant and not actually like shower before we show up. So like, I don't feel like I've been scared by any smells or anything like that. It can get crowded, but I will say this about what Nintendo's booth. Now this isn't true of every booth there, but Nintendo's booth, there's particular games that can be kind of long. Like the last one we went to, Link's Awakening, was like one of the longer ones, and Luigi's Mansion. But I will say, for someone like you that's really interested in Nintendo's really streamlined it. You can now sign up ahead of time for certain time slots, so like you're not waiting in line for 3 hours. The games they know that aren't going to have the longest lines are now in a separate section. So like we got to play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. We could have played that on repeat all day long, no problem. Like literally walked into it like a bunch of them. We could have played a whole bunch of games like that. So like Nintendo's actually made it much easier.
It also depends on the day you go too.
Link's Awakening was the only one that was a bit difficult to you wanted to hit that one early before they started moving the queue line somewhere else, and then it became a 3-hour wait.
Yeah.
But that was, and I'm sure Nintendo I don't think thought that year Link's Awakening was going to be they clearly thought Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion were going to be bigger, and yet the line for Link's Awakening was insane.
Yes.
So they were prepared for long lines for Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion and handled that fantastic.
Yeah,
they were not prepared for Link's Awakening. So that was kind of
assuming it's like that, right? Where like let's say there is Metro Prime 4, and like you can schedule when you go in. There's not really that much of a hassle. You just there when you schedule it, and everything else is streamlined. Then fine, I would love to go because as you mentioned with Nintendo, like
they done it the last 2
years. They sort of handle things, especially like the last few years they've kind of made it like a little bit like a theme park. That's really cool. So for that reason, I would love to be there.
Part of me though with Metroid, if they were to have it at E3, I would assume that they would.
They would plan that out. I think Link's Awakening they thought it was an old game being made again.
It's a port.
Yeah.
I mean,
their new games they think are a big deal are the ones that
they will have the line settled and prepared for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to take you a while to play it, but
even like so you can wait in the long line, right? So if you want to play Luigi's Mansion twice, you can go outside of your queue time and wait in the long line if you want, and that's cool to have an option. Or you could sign up ahead of time like we did, and you just wait in line, and it's like a really tiny line because you get to go to like basically the front. They have you're 10:30. Okay, you get to come in line here. Everyone else has to wait, and you watch everyone groan as you walk by, and you go, hey, they had sign-ups online. You guys are just not paying attention. Mm-hmm. So that's you snooze, you lose, and then you only wait for like 5 minutes, and then you're in and playing. Mm-hmm. And plus, the booth is really cool to look at. They always have really cool things to look at while you're waiting in line too.
And then if you also go,
but that's Nintendo. Not every booth is that organized.
Right.
Like when we waited for, to see Cyberpunk. That was a bit of a long wait. So like not all of them are that organized. I remember we wanted to play I think Doom Eternal the one time. We knew it was coming to Switch. We're like, well, hey, let's at least play the PC version to see what it's like. And that was you exclusively had to sign up ahead of time. You couldn't wait on a public queue for that. So we didn't know that, so we weren't signed up. But a lot of E3 is streamlined that way now because ever since they let the public in, they've kind of learned. Okay, we have to like do something about the fact that the lines are 3 hours.
And as long as it's streamlined like that, then I'm totally fine with it. I'm actually super down.
That's the way it is. That's the way it was the last 2 years.
The last couple, if you go the especially day 3. I mean, the lines are.
2016 wasn't like that. 2016 was you wait 3 hours to play one game.
Booth.
Now, granted, they put a lot of people in every time. It still was a 3 hour wait. Well, then again, it was also Breath of the Wild, and I mean, to be honest,
that was
how many
Nintendo's
of us
only
would
game.
wait 3 hours to play Breath of the Wild in 2016?
It was Nintendo's only game.
Yes.
And it was also like one of their best E3s
and
ever.
I will say,
and they totally had game of the show.
The wait kind of felt worth it because you got to play 2 demos and you were playing for like 45 minutes. It was sweet. Mm-hmm. So like it's like, oh, you wait 3 hours, but you're really getting to go in. You get to play the entire beginning of the game. Like that's awesome.
How many times have you gone to a theme park?
A lot.
Like
like thousands of times probably.
I abhor waiting in long lines.
Yeah.
Buy the fast pass.
Even if the ride is great, if you wait in a line for an hour for a 4-minute ride.
Last time we did Noah's Ark, we hit every single ride in one day because
you go during the week and call it.
It may be an amazing 4 minutes, but I don't like waiting in lines. I just really hate lines. But I'll tell you, it is going to be a shame if we kind of continue in this direction where things like E3 go away. It's kind of similar to, like, for example, like arcades aren't as big of a deal as they used to either. Mm-hmm. Like there used to be more places that we go to physically to have more of like that sort of experience. Now everything's becoming increasingly more and more digital, and we are in some ways becoming more socially distant. So physically at least. And it is going to be something I'm going to miss, like, as we sort of progress in that way. Like, I miss arcades, and I love the idea of being able to go to a big event and being able to experience, like, all of these really, like, cool things, of gaming culture like all in one place. So, I don't want things to go in that way, but that is the direction we've been like increasingly headed in.
Yeah, I think I don't think summertime events to show games are going to go away. I think the big thing that people forget about E3, because when you're at home, all you really care about usually is the press conferences, right? It's all about the press conference. You don't really care about E3 itself. To be clear, E3 is a show floor event. It is like all the press conferences weren't previously until this last year organized at all by the ESA. That was all independent. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Square, all these companies just doing their own thing before E3 in the lead up, and it just became part of E3 over all these years. But E3 itself is literally just a show floor, and technically there's been nothing that's actually replaced that. The problem is they've had so much criticism over that show floor, which is entirely why Sony left, because they didn't agree with how they're handling it. I think that's the thing, nothing's really replaced it, although Gamescom does have that. I do think we are also in a new age where it's becoming increasingly hard to justify keeping things exclusive at this event when you could, you want media to play it? Why can't we send you a media demo digitally? Why do you have to come here to play it? So it's almost like an archaic part of the past. By the way, not that in-person events aren't going to happen and have demos and all that. That's fine. But I feel like the need for that is sort of dwindling away, just from a technological standpoint. It's getting to the point where we don't really necessarily need to do that. Now, obviously, there has been concern with game leaks, and yes, sending digital demos, there's going to be concerns with that. But they already are starting to do press-only events before, like Gamescom. Any demo that's involved with Gamescom, the media has already played. Same with E3. There was a media week. The media got to play everything before we even got news on it. So it's like, I almost feel like my concern with E3 going away is, one, there isn't really anything to replace that, and if it goes away, then Eric and I have to go to some other event, and there really isn't a consensus what other event do you choose to go to. PAX is great. There are some demos. Some. And because there's only some, the lines are insane, because that's not really the whole point of PAX.
Nintendo's really not really involved.
They are. Nintendo's at PAX. Nintendo's at PAX. Some of the demos from E3 they'll have at PAX, but it'll only be like a few stations.
Yeah.
You're not.
They're not as involved.
Yeah. So like they have a booth at these places, but I just think. So E3, I feel like we almost have an affinity to the brand a little bit, that it's going to be around, and I feel like the ESA, which is the company that runs E3, has an affinity to it too. They think the E3 brand is too big to fail. And I think we saw not only with Sony leaving, but in how E3 handled this last year, where it was just a shit show.
Yeah.
That the brand is kind of tarnished at this point, and I think only really matters to those of us that grew up with it. I think new gamers coming in, like teenagers today, do they even give a shit about E3? They get their gaming news on Twitter. Do they give a shit about E3?
Yeah.
They're not watching. They watch streamers now. Live events happening. That's great for you. That's great for us, Andres. That's great for Nintendo does a direct. That's awesome for us. We can do live streams. But like, most people aren't going to get the news from those streams. They're going to get it off their Twitter feeds. They're going to get it from the notifications on their phone. The events are good for us, and yeah, obviously streamers have gotten really, really popular. And I'm sure you can admit, I can admit, when we streamed Nintendo Directs, it's really high viewership because it's directs. It's big news, but also, besides it benefiting us, most people, like you see, like as an example, like the Spider-Man movie, it had its trailer come out, and it's got, I don't know, over 100 million views at this point between all the different places that it's on. But it's like, but yeah, people didn't have to be there and watch that live. They just got it and they watch it when they feel like it. And I feel like that's the way news is being delivered today. Like when I get my videos up for you guys on my channel that has news in it, I'm not the first person to report on that stuff. It's coming from elsewhere. So people get their news in so many different ways that I almost feel like E3 isn't necessarily needed. And I feel like that's what's been proven with, I know the pandemic has helped boost sales, but look at the sales of video games and consoles over the last 2 years where E3 has pretty much been irrelevant. These companies don't need it. I don't think teenagers, which are the kind of group you want to hit to keep your brand relevant, good moving forward, right? We always have your long haul fans, but you always want to introduce new ones, and teens are the ones that are getting to the point where they start to get jobs, get cars, move into, becoming adults and deciding where they're going to spend their free money. And that's when you really want to, capture gamers or new gamers. And I don't know that they care about E3. By the way, I'm not saying they care about Gamescom either. But I'm saying I don't think they care in general. They just want the news and they can just get it anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think that's hurt E3. I think E3 has not evolved properly with social media and the way the world works today. And I think that was very evident when E3 put all this advertising, become a co-streamer, become this, become that. We're pushing E3 big. And then you watch E3's event and you're like, you are so out of touch. Not just with me as an old school gamer. You're out of touch with gamers. Teenagers aren't going to care about Verizon 5G ads when they're tuning into something being advertised to them as a video game show. They're not going to be caring about, oh my God, there's a Borderlands movie being made. And it's just behind the scenes with the guy behind Borderlands running around that. I guarantee you most of the teenagers don't even know the guy who runs that company.
You know what's funny? Me thinking about it, I didn't watch E3. I watched the Nintendo Direct and I watched the Treehouse, and then
you probably watched the Nintendo stuff on Nintendo's channel, right? You didn't even because they had it on their own channels.
I didn't go to an E3 website. No, no, it was probably on the official Nintendo stuff. Now for all the other E3 stuff, once it came out, I checked out the trailers. Like that's it. I watched very minimal live streams. Now for me, it's just because time. Like,
oh sure, time's all, and they happen. To be honest, even to opening that live happened in the middle of the day. Like, and I get it because it's actually nighttime out in Europe, so I understand that it's why it's called opening night, despite being in the middle of the day, because it's actually night where they're at. But it's that happens with Nintendo Directs a lot of times too. They happen at these times that I always wonder why Nintendo chooses some of the times they do, because it seems to be to me at times that people aren't going to be available. Yeah, they somehow still do phenomenal for views. So Nintendo knows something I don't. Their market research team, they're paid, so they know what they're doing. But yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing. You just said, hey, I didn't really pay attention to E3 until it was Nintendo, and then I watched that, and I watched it on Nintendo stuff. It's like E3 didn't happen to you. It was just another Nintendo Direct. And like that's the interesting part is I wonder how true that is for many people where. We get. That's why I said we get to. I don't think E3 is going to go away until they try an in-person event again. I think they're going to hope that's going to save.
The other thing, I didn't even watch all of the Treehouse. Like I watched most of it after the fact. Like I watched the first Metroid Dread part, and then I was like, okay, I have to do other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the way. And I came back eventually to watch them, but not all live. No.
Well, it's even like this podcast. This podcast will have 1,200 views, and then. By this time next week, it might have 3,000. So that means most of the people that watch it after the fact. And I feel like that's the way.
Right.
I mean, that's a timing thing. That doesn't mean the stream version's irrelevant and that you guys watching right now are not having a great time. It's just there's less viewers now than are going to watch it after the fact. So I guess I want to throw this to Eric because obviously we've been to E3. I love the E3 in person. It's great. Mm-hmm. I think the experience has actually gotten better. Even though it'd be nice to have the media badges that we haven't been able to get yet, and we're still not there yet, guys. We got to have 100,000 subscribers. I mean, that's another reason they're out of touch with media and the way social media works. So they're just whatever. And the fact that I can have a website that gets 10,000 views per month and get a media badge, but I can have a YouTube channel that's 300,000 views in a month and can't get a media badge. You're a little out of touch. But that's a criticism from. I guess you could say a more entitled spot in media because people always think the media are entitled with these whatever. It's fine. They improve the experience enough that it doesn't really matter Gamer Pass or media. You're just saving $250 at that point. I mean, you get a little early access to the show floor, but it doesn't really matter.
Well, now the next one, I'm sure it's actually a full day.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. Last year was supposed to be a full day for media. So that is a big deal.
Yes.
Because that's a full day for media, which they should have probably been doing this whole time.
They should have done that from the beginning.
I think they should still have 3 days for the public and 1 day for just media. And media can go maybe an hour early access on those days, but they have a dedicated day. So then
they have a full day, and then they have the hour early to get in line first.
Or like do all your demos on if I was media, I'd try to do all my demos day one and then do your interviews and stuff like that.
Right.
All the rest of the days.
Yeah.
Or if there's something else you wanted to get a second look at, whatever.
We were saying that since. But the first time we went there when they first opened.
What are your do you think E3 is going to go away? I mean, even think about this from a user experience of in person. Last time we went, they had this entire area set up for all of us to sit under the tent, and there was such bad communication.
Christ, yeah.
We didn't even really talk about this when it happened at E3
No,
2019.
I think we kind of did.
Yeah, but we didn't really spend much time on it. This was frustrating. They have this giant long tent in front of the entrance to E3 that all of us are supposed to be able to basically pile under, so you're not scorching in the California sun, because you need to be there X amount of hours early if you want to. Again, the lines, you want to get to the front of the line. So, okay, well, there was such poor communication that the security wasn't letting us in, even though multiple people told them, hey, that tent up there is for us.
What's the point of setting up the tent if you're not going to
That tent up there is for us to wait under. You think they set up those food stands by that tent? And I felt bad for the food stands.
Yeah, right.
It's like the food stands are probably making bank off of people waiting in line for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And here they are making nothing because they're not letting us go up there.
Right.
And finally, the head of security walked down at one point and said,
a half hour out.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes maybe before we were supposed to go in. He walks down and he goes, why the hell are all these people standing outside?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be under the tent. And that to me is like, and that guy, by the way, he's the cool guy.
He's awesome.
Everyone that goes to E3, you'll
awesome.
eventually meet this guy. And everyone loves him. But here's the problem. The problem is they can't even communicate on where people are supposed to stand in line.
Right.
That's the E3 we're talking about. That's how bad and disorganized the entire event is.
I mean, just think about it this way. If they were to have kept us there until the floor opened, I mean, this is floor opening we're talking about, not metal detector opening that you have to then walk through and wait an hour in line for that.
You go through the metal detectors first, and then you're supposed to stand in this giant queue they had set up.
But the metal detectors was between us and the queue that we're supposed to be in. So we would have had to wait in from when show floor opened. We would have had to then go through metal detectors.
And I thought the only logic.
the
only logic I thought at the time, and I didn't say this out loud, but I was thinking, well, maybe they're trying to slow down that rush, where people kind of run even though you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Because if you're forced to go through the metal detector, I mean, there's no point to run because it's too slow to get through anyways. What are you rushing to?
Yeah.
But then again, part of the cool thing, and this was really cool that one day we went as media back in 2016 on the final day. On the final day though, we were there as media back in 2016. Well, what was really cool is on the day we got to go in early because we realized, we could have went in early the whole time we didn't know. So we did that on day 3, and you turn around, and it is cool watching the rush of people come in like a stampede.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the one time that we were in the rush and then I lost my badge, and it was fine. We ended up getting it back, but it was. I'm just saying that E3. It felt that was the first time I've been to E3. As much as I loved how Nintendo was organized, E3 wasn't organized.
No. And as long as it's but the thing is, as long as it's
that's why Sony dipped out. By the way,
as long as it's
ESA doesn't know what they're doing.
As long as it's controlled by the ESA, it's not going to be organized.
And the ESA is ran by all the video game companies. So I'm just the execs don't know what they're doing.
The ESA must not have any sort of gamers on their board.
I mean, I'm going to tell you guys right now. I think E3 is fine if they let Jeff Keighley run it.
Yeah.
If they don't let Jeff Keighley, and I'm not just talking about the digital events or whatever. I'm talking about the actual show. Let him run the show. He'll get Sony back.
Oh, yeah.
He'll get everyone back.
Yeah. I mean,
all the big companies are starting to go to Jeff Keighley and be like, what are you doing at the Game Awards? What are you doing at Summer Game Fest? Opening night live for Gamescom, ran by Jeff Keighley.
Yeah.
Jeff Keighley clearly, while you might not like his presentation style and the way he sets things up, but he clearly does it better than the ESA, and it's always organized.
Yeah. So overall, E3 going away, I don't know. Is it in trouble? Possibly. I don't know. If they have to keep going all digital, this is gone in 3 years.
I mean, I will miss in-person press conferences. I already do.
Yep.
The crowd reactions.
But,
as much as we see reaction on the internet, it's just not the same.
No, to be
go watch E3 2004 Twilight Princess reveal, and you're never going to get that again because Nintendo does everything digital. So
that's why now we've seen sort of like, well, one, live reactions have sort of taken somewhat of the place of that, right? Like, there's a big now with our internet culture, live reactions are a big deal. Right, seeing someone's immediate reaction to whatever is announced, but then also like you go to like the Nintendo store, like whenever there's like a big reveal and there's like a whole crowd of fans inside the Nintendo store watching E3, like you just Google like Nintendo store like Metroid Prime reveal, like it was explosion. It was It was so loud. It was crazy. Like that's kind of like what's taken the place of that now. And I'll tell you that I remember 2004 because that's when they showed off. At the time, it didn't have the name, but like they showed off Twilight Princess.
Yep.
They showed off Resident Evil 4. They showed off Metroid Prime 2 at E3, and specifically the Zelda reveal. It was huge. It was the Zelda with the big Lord of the Rings influence, and back then Lord of the Rings was still very, very much a big part of. I mean, it's still important now, but that's when they were coming out
Miyamoto
in the
drawing the
movies.
sword as the crowd is just going nuts.
It was people were screaming and it was incredible. It was one of the most like amazing things to be a part of back then.
And
that's gone.
We all felt a part of it from home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like, oh, the Nintendo store. That's cool if you're there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the rest of us see. The rest of us see, did you like what you saw? All right, let's move on to the next game. We don't get the pause, you might get your streamer reaction, and that's cool. Yeah. Thank you for watching me and watching my crazy reactions and stuff. That's fine.
You don't hear a crowd.
But imagine that you had that with the crowd reaction.
You don't have a crowd. So you know what would be interesting if there was like a organized sort of like stream or software that was put together where you have like a family of streamers, right? Where like, let's say for example, this was set up and I decided to participate in it. So someone's watching me watch E3. So people who are watching it through my live stream, they'll still see me. I'll still be the predominant voice aside from the actual stream itself, right? But it'll still be set up to like, well, there'll be like a background or like an audience voice where other streamers who are part of this program, they're also heard in the background to kind of simulate that audience reaction that we used to get back in the day.
Still won't
like
be
that's probably it won't be the same, but it's maybe the closest approximation we can probably come up with. I'll give you an example.
The NBA did it in the bubble. They put a crowd on screens. Could barely hear them, if at all. And then go back to the NBA Finals this year in person. Significantly different. In person and digital. No matter how you set it up, it'll never be the same. That's why live sporting events are still one of the most popular things on cable TV and keeps cable TV around because
when you
the crowd
feel the vibration of the voices
and
the screams.
Until ESPN cuts it down.
Well, whatever. But the point is that like we
and
see
there's
it with
also
sports.
like that potential.
I think you can agree. Like live sports is with the crowd is so much better than without.
There's also like that potential sort of like interaction, you know, even though you're not supposed to, like theoretically someone could throw a tomato, right? Or someone could jump on stage. Like just of that element being there, that potential, that also adds something as well, right? So losing it, yeah, I mean, I totally agree that like losing the audience, we are losing something. It's a shame. But at the same time, live conferences sort of sucked. Like they were long. They were talked about way more stuff that we did not need to hear.
Well, there was some tone deafness at times. Like Nintendo's got to throw up the graph. Oh, we've grown our subscriber base. Blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, yeah, we don't care. Save that for your investor meeting.
Like, right, and that's the thing. They kind of like made it an investor meeting at the same time.
But so it was always technically it was always that going back to the 90s though. Like, because if we think about press conferences. It's press. So like what happens when like Apple goes on stage and they do the same shit. Like that's what like I think what happens is we're not necessarily traditional press. We're more gamers than we are media, and because of that, we're just there for the games. But the press might care that like, oh yeah, this this and that, this is for investing or for this like. So like the moments that we say, oh yeah, boo, that sucked. Yeah, but that's what this like. This is a press conference. This is not a Nintendo Direct. This is not a showcase of games. We will have games because we need to sell you on our products. But we're here to talk about the overall health of the company.
You remember the Switch presentation? That was a live conference, and that was pretty good. I remember that one not being too bad. The Switch one. The Switch presentation.
It wasn't live. It was unveiled in October 2016 in a commercial, basically.
No, there was a Switch presentation January 2017 where
you're talking about the secondary one they did in Japan.
Right, they did a trailer in October, but the 2016. But they had like an actual presentation there was a live audience there. That was the
That
last
audience,
time.
I will admit, that audience was very subdued. They didn't seem to get that excited about anything.
Probably because
Granted,
they just invited
what were
a whole
some
bunch
things
of
they were showing off? We have
weirdos.
HD Rumble. We could shake ice cubes, and it's
I
like,
can't feel that.
well, we
Cool.
can't feel that. Like that's a cool thing to put in a demo booth, but like,
Well, I mean, that presentation they showed off. Well, they announced SMT5. They announced Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
was that when they
They
officially confirmed
confirmed
the Mario
Splatoon
Odyssey
2.
2?
They
I believe.
confirmed Mario Odyssey. They, and I believe they announced ARMS. Then they confirmed Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh yeah,
They gave us
they
a new trailer
confirmed
for
the
Breath of the
entire
Wild.
first year lineup of Switch, basically,
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, it was.
which was an amazing lineup.
And it was an incredible presentation. They concluded it by confirming the release date of Breath of the Wild alongside the Switch with arguably the best trailer ever made. It's like it was a really good presentation. But I don't really remember there being strong like audience reactions with it. But there was an audience.
Yeah, I think that audience wasn't made up of. I think that audience was like an investor's audience. I think it was just their investment group there.
Next time Nintendo decides to have one of those again,
I don't know if they
presumably
ever will.
for, well, maybe they do it for their next system, right? Maybe they only do it once per
We keep
generation.
saying that, but Switch was unveiled without a live audience. It's like it takes away some of the luster. The console unveilings used to be the most exciting part of live. Like when Iwata pulls the damn Wii out of his pocket in front of a live audience, people are like, "Holy!"
I mean, the thing is, they have to do a trailer because that makes more sense. Like,
Well,
they
it
have
makes
to
more-
because that's
well,
just going to make more money.
It makes sense because Nintendo does digital events. See, it made sense
Yeah.
when Iwata pulled the Wii out because everyone announces systems at E3 and everyone does it in front of a live audience. Now we
It
don't
would
do
be
that
cool
anymore.
though. It would be cool though to have a direct that had an audience. It would be cool to do that.
It would be cool. They're not going
And,
to.
it would have to be like the ideal sort of like live direct or whatever you want to live direct presentation would be where they invite content creators and yeah, like invite content creators and people who are actually passionate about it, because then you'll have like a ridiculous sort of like audience and it'll be awesome.
Shout out to Natsu in the chat. I couldn't help it. Sports without streakers just wouldn't be the same. I love it. I mean, it happens every year. Someone's going streaking. We didn't quite get a streaker at that Dodgers game, but we did have someone run across the field at that one Dodgers game this year and then just get freaking decked by one of the ball girls. It was hilarious. Anyways. Okay, so general consensus then. Obviously, Andre kind of thinks, it's probably E3 is probably going to survive and stick around at least for a while. What do you think?
I think it'll be fine as long as it can go back with in person. If they have to try to keep doing just straight digital,
Well,
for the
they
next
suck
few
at
years,
digital.
They're done.
They're better letting the companies do their own thing,
Yes.
and then just. I think E3's strength is in person, but also they've been kind of messing up in person.
Yeah,
Like we just pointed out, like they seem so disorganized.
right. And not to mention they need to fix their back end too of how you register and all that crap.
That's been
I
needed.
know, yeah.
I mean, God,
You know,
we're
it'd be
still using the
nice
same back
if
end
they
from 10
had
years
like,
ago.
well, if they treated like so. For example, to your point, how E3 is more about the show floor, right? Where if they rethought it, because there are going to be companies that are going to have their own separate events, like Nintendo, who's just going to do a direct, and they're going to have their treehouse. But what if they, they had just moments where like, okay, we're going to go ahead and play this demo, right? And that's on the E3 stream, and this is what they're focused on. But then they also have moments where they do like, live vlogs where they have someone walking around on camera so they can sort of get an up close look of how the show floor looks, see the different attractions and booths. Like do stuff like that throughout the show instead of what it has been. Like that might be kind of a way to sort of modernize it a little bit and get people to be a little bit more engaged.
So I'll say this. The thing about E3, and when you consider the show floor and the press conferences and everything, part of, and I'm not big into it, but when I do tune in, part of what makes esports so exciting is that crowd reaction.
Oh yeah.
It's just like real sports. Yeah, it's cool when you see this epic play made in like a in like an NFL game, But if there's no crowd reacting to it, it's just you in a room or you watching some streamer reacting to it, and it's just you person, and it's, it's cool. It can be funny, like how I reacted to Breath of the Wild 2's unveiling, but it's still
a heart attack?
Yeah, but it's still also that ain't the same as E3 2004. It's just you don't have that feel, and I feel like esports is obviously, hey, we're a sporting event. We're gonna have crowds there. They're going to react. It can even be just a crowd of 50 people, but they're going to go nuts because they're super into these games, they're super into these companies, and they're going to go crazy when these amazing moves are made that maybe people watching at home don't even realize was so amazing, but the crowd does because they're experts on it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like E3 is trying to find a way to like on the show floor. It seems okay because it's dependent on the company. Some of the companies are really, really good at it. Like when at the one E3 that had Smash back in 2018, they did a really good job. They had a full-on announcer on there. People were going nuts in person over all the big screen Smash happening in the tournaments and the high-end, quote-unquote high-end play that anyone could have got involved in. That was cool. Mm-hmm. But that was also Nintendo gets it. Some of the other companies, like you go to your booth and like everyone's just kind of frowning and aren't really having a good time.
There's not really lines. You just kind of free fall and.
It just all gets back to I think Sony has felt this way, and that's why they dipped out. Was just the excitement isn't there like it once was. Like this year we made people excited for E3, but that's because of what we were doing. Wasn't necessarily because of what they were doing. So I don't know. Personally, I honestly think in 3 years E3 is going to be a thing of the past. Assuming they had a chance in those 3 years to actually do an in-person event. And we'll see, maybe it bounces back.
Human civilization's still a thing 3 years from now. I mean, we got UFOs and...
What I want to happen,
the Delta variant.
If we can't get Jeff Keighley to run all of E3, fine. I want him to actually still partner with the ESA, and he runs all the press conference digital stuff beforehand. And that E3 just focus on, let's worry about the show floor. We'll get companies to commit to the show floor, and we'll just figure that out. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens in the future. Getting to the next topic, which is obviously one that I think a lot of people are excited about and been waiting around this entire time for, Nintendo Direct. So, let's just start with this. Do we think a Nintendo Direct's happening next month?
Yes.
Probably.
So, to be clear here, set aside any rumors. I think Samus Hunter and a couple others put out a rumor that there's going to be one next month. You just got to look at history. There's been a Direct every single September since Directs were announced, except the year they didn't have Directs last year.
I refer to the Direct archive.
Yeah. Just go to the Direct archive. Literally, every September, there's a Direct, except for the 1 year they didn't have Directs.
And even then...
there was Mario.
Yeah, so let's go back to... I mean, we're in 2021 now, so let's go back to 2020, which is the year without Directs, right? The pandemic year. In September, we still got... a Monster Hunter Direct, a Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, both of which I don't really care too much about. Well, I cared about Monster Hunter, but anyway. And then during that time, I think we still got some other announcements, like there's the Pikmin 3 and Age of Calamity
when was the
trailers that came out in
Mario
September.
anniversary thing? When was that?
The Super Mario Bros. 35th Anniversary Direct was September 3rd.
So that was September. That was basically their Direct.
And that was a big Direct, and we got that September 3rd.
Yeah.
And that was the year where there was not Directs.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go back to 2019. In 2019, on September 4th, there was a big Nintendo Direct where they talked about Sword and Shield and Luigi's Mansion 3 and a few other cool things.
Yep.
It was a 40-minute plus Direct. It was a big deal. Let's go to 2018. September 13th, big Nintendo Direct. Let's go to 2017. September 13th, big Nintendo Direct, 45 plus minutes. So every year of the Switch era, there has been a major Direct presentation in September. And what you may notice, not even just in the month of September, but the first 2 weeks of September. So I'm not saying that this time around it'll be in the first 2 weeks, but the pattern suggests so.
Yeah, and September's a little weird this year because the first happens on a Wednesday, so it could be that following week, or it could be the week after, which would then technically push it into a little bit into the second half. But again, that's all timing on the month. That's not. Basically, it's happening either like the first full week or the second full week is essentially what it sounds like based on the past. Doesn't mean it will. Could be later in the month. But also, if you look at the history, Indie Worlds usually happen the month before a Direct. We got an Indie World. We also got a Pokemon Presents, which conveniently seems to always happen right before we're about to get a Direct.
Yeah, that one was weird.
Now, that
though,
one's
'cause that was
usually
like the
E3,
one we were waiting for at E3.
Yeah.
Like we waited, like they took so long to give us the Pokemon news. We're already talking about getting the next September Direct.
Yeah, right.
Like they took a very long time. So that is a bit of an outlier there. I don't really know what
It's
to
an
make
outlier,
of that.
but traditionally it comes before a Direct. So I always look
Yeah.
at it as, I don't need rumor mongers to tell me there's a Direct next month. Nintendo is telling you there's a Direct next month. They don't even need
Not
to
to
announce
mention-
it. It's coming.
Not to mention, they probably want to showcase Metroid Dread in another Direct one more time.
Well, we also have to consider, we actually know games coming this year. They're going to want to advertise them all again.
Yeah.
So that kind of gets into...
September's a perfect time for hype for holiday.
Well, start of the school year,
Hype for holiday.
getting into the fall. Let's actually hype for stuff. And they'll have... By the way, guys, there's probably going to be a Metroid Dread Direct at some point or showcase. There's going to be individual
I don't know if there's
game
gonna be a
ones.
Dread Direct. I think it might just have a big feature in a September Direct, and you just have a couple weeks away. We've been getting all these Dread reports, like they're just gonna.
Yeah, the Dread reports, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think there's a need for a Dread Direct because the Dread
We'll see.
reports have been kind of giving us that information we want and need already. And Nintendo's done a good job of making us aware of what it is. But we have the Switch OLED coming out as well. Like all of this has been boosting sort of Dread
Well,
awareness.
this is a question I have for the chat. How many of you guys are even aware that the Dread reports exist? I know they exist, but how many of you guys actually know that they exist? Because I don't actually think people are more aware that the Indie World happened, I think, than they are aware that these Dread reports exist. Unless they're really hardcore and strictly looking for that crap every day, I'm not so sure that they actually know just because Nintendo's Twitter account tweets it out. See, not me. There's a few people in the chat. No idea. See, I'm not so sure the general Nintendo fan base actually knows about those Dread reports. There's something about directs that get the attention versus individual little video features over time, or written features sometimes.
Maybe they could do another
Justin Bass, by the way,
Treehouse.
thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I see you. Thank you.
Another Dread Treehouse might be better.
That would be awesome.
A Treehouse too. People do like the Treehouse brand.
So I could see that.
Well, I think what helps with directs is they're announced ahead of time, and that usually the day before. Usually we have had surprise same day directs, but usually we know at least a day before, sometimes two. It gets spread around. Every YouTuber talks about it, and bam, everybody knows. And then you go and you schedule that time, and to check for news on that day. So, and I don't think that happens with Dread reports. We don't know when they're coming, and even if there is, maybe we do. Maybe there's some consistency to it. But the point is that how many YouTubers have you seen talk about the Dread reports? It's not really something people are paying attention to. Now, some do, of course. There's going to be Metroid channels as an example that every little morsel of news they're going to talk about it. But
I get your point. For sure. I mean, they're gonna talk about Dread. Like that's gonna happen. I just don't know if we're gonna get a Dread Direct. I don't know if that's necessary.
Do we think that Dread? So I think there's going to be a game direct, an individual game direct that's from sometime between now and the end of the year. But let's just say it's not Dread. Like what other game would they really?
Shin Megami Tensei 5.
You think Shin Megami Tensei 5 would get its own? And that's possible. Like they have Monster Hunter did one.
That's the kind of game that sort of needs like Monster Hunter Rise, to sort of advertise to the Nintendo fan base, make them aware that hey, there's this big game coming.
I really hope that game sells well, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Shin Megami Tensei has always been a great series. Persona's a great series. I really want to see that game do well, but we'll see. I mean, it has to earn it, too. It has to actually be a good game. We presume it's been in development forever, so we presume it's going to be good, but looks good. When we saw it, it looked good, but we'll have to wait.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, I might buy that instead of Brilliant
Direct's happening in September. History tells us that some people are rumoring out there, but again...
Conceivably, it could happen like the first week of October, but I doubt it because Dread comes out October 8th.
I think they're going to... when does WarioWare come out? Because I feel like they're going to want to mention that game again.
Oh, actually, I mean, I think that WarioWare comes out like the second week of September, but let me double check.
WarioWare Get It Together comes out September 10th. So I could see them that week. Because, again, that would be the first full week of September. I could see them doing one on a Tuesday or Thursday that week. And being like, well, we want to advertise this game before it comes out too, so that's going to be... So I could see that because I think that's another game that Nintendo's like, look, we're not going to do an individual direct for it, but we'd like to mention it the week it comes out. So
Yeah.
I'm not predicting a date yet, but that seems like maybe a pretty interesting guess there to come out before that game hits. So, okay, so setting aside like when we think it might happen, tradition says first 2 weeks of September, sometime the 13th or before. That seems to be what they've been doing. What do we actually think is going to be there? Because I think it's pretty safe to say every game coming out the rest of the year that we know of is going to probably be in it in some way, even
Except
if it's
for
just a sizzle reel mention.
Pokemon, they might not mention Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon might not be in there, but that's Pokemon is
Yeah.
almost always separate from directs.
But the thing is, they at least used to like give us like a quick little trailer. Based off what they did at E3, they might not even do that. But I mean, we just got a present, so it's not a big deal, right? Yeah, not a big deal.
Pokemon company's fine advertising their own games, so I'm not too worried about that.
We're gonna get like steady updates for both games leading up to both the releases.
Oh yeah.
Every week, kind of like the Dread reports, but whatever.
Well, Pokemon's also a bigger IP, so it gets around a bit more too.
Of course. The one thing's for sure, we're gonna get the final Smash reveal.
We're supposed to. So they did say that character's coming before the end of 2021, so it feels like, well, they're gonna unveil it there.
The last Direct.
Conceivably
they can wait till the Game Awards.
What they said, I agree, it should happen there. I also get this feeling that while they said that, Nintendo might logically go, what if we push this character to 2022? To give Smash a boost in spring before we are done. Now, again, they said this year. So I get it. You should expect it. But I also go, it's the last one. Why would they want to milk it for even longer? You know?
No.
I mean, ultimately, by the way, Sakurai decides when it gets unveiled. It's not really even up to
I think they're not gonna delay finishing this. They're gonna finish it when it's time, and they're gonna move on. It's just that simple.
I don't know if they're okay. Question:
If they wanted more this character, 2022, they would announce more content.
Yeah, so I have a question. So obviously the Smash character is supposed to come out this year. Comes out whatever. Do you think they're done updating the game after that, or do you think there'll still be more spirit events? More costumes coming out.
That's tough. I mean, there could be some. I think there is a chance for like a final Smash update. So like they give us the reveal trailer in the September Direct, and later on into the year, there's like that. The Sakurai presents maybe just a few weeks later. It is like a final Smash update. Maybe they add like one more mode, or maybe they add a few alternate costumes or something like that.
I'm talking like forget this year, next year. Do you think they're going to keep adding small little updates to the game?
I think they're pretty much done, and that's it. I think what could happen though, and obviously I don't know, but I think Sakurai's just going to move on. He already said this is it.
But does
We're
Sakurai
done,
need to be around for costumes for Mii characters? Let's be honest, it's not a balancing thing. All the Mii characters play the same depending on what class they are.
And I mean, that's something that we'll sort of need to see like the final Smash update for. Like in that final Sakurai Presents, he may announce something like that. He's like, hey, look, I'm done now, but we'll be doing there's going to be at least like stability updates. They're still going to do patches and things like that. That'll continue happening.
I don't think Sakurai.
But like, will there be like any sort of notable content upgrades or additions? It would be interesting if they start doing alternate costumes. Because, like, to your point, that doesn't require, like, Sakurai have, like, a lot of influence there. He doesn't really need to be, like, playtesting or anything like that. So, conceivably, and that would be a nice way to sort of maintain the Smash hype, like, instead of it being characters, like, hey, there's a final Smash character, but, maybe every once in a while we'll release some alternate costumes. And then the speculation could then jump to, oh, who's going to get a costume this time, right? So that might be actually a smart way to kind of continue the Smash hype a little bit. So I like that idea. And it's also unrealistic to expect.
Smash is such a big game, and it continues to just randomly appear in the top 10 sales charts. And I'm kind of like, there's not going to be another one this gen. It's not like Splatoon 2 where they can be like, all right, we're going to be done because we have another one coming. Like, I feel like keeping it relevant to keep the fan base interacting with it, I think might be something they continue to do. But again,
what if they, instead of, because Sakurai is involved in a lot of like the character stuff.
Oh yeah, heavily.
What if they released like a pack of stages?
I suppose.
And bring in different stages, because he probably won't have to be there for building stages per se.
I mean, when you look at it too, he mentioned that he has been doing. So he used to do every single thing about balancing characters and like he won't let anyone else do it. And he mentioned in some of his Famitsu columns, he started to back off that a bit, where he doesn't do everything. And he said, that's because I can't be making Smash forever. One, it's physically, we all know about his hand issues and everything. If you know anything about Sakurai, he's sacrificed his health for Smash on more than one occasion. So he's even said, I can't physically do it forever, and also, like, I'm not going to make Smash forever, so I need to, like, train other people to be able to do it so it's in good hands when I no longer do it. It's almost like training people so he can move on someday. And this was the first time that he's actually done that and backed off a little bit, where he doesn't do all of it. So it's possible he might not even be involved in the stage making at all. Maybe he does like final testing of it and makes some notes, that he throws back at him. But I don't know that he even makes the stages anymore. I think he's been just more of a guiding hand that final tests character movesets and then just says, nope, this doesn't work. Redo this. Because I think we haven't heard any stories about him breaking down and going to hospitals over his hands or anything, because he has been doing less of that. So again, but that's also setting up Smash to succeed beyond him, because it's also, we could go on a whole podcast on Smash, like what we even think the future could even possibly look like for that franchise, because Ultimate kind of feels like
it's the end.
That's the end, but it's too popular of a series to be the end. So we'll see what happens. But let's kind of set the Smash level aside, because I feel like we've been talking about this a lot, and the only thing I will mention about it is, who do you think's getting revealed?
Oh God, I don't even know. I haven't even had a chance to even think about that.
Who do you want revealed then? What character do you want in Smash?
I already got Banjo, so I haven't played Smash in a while. Gosh. I mean, Conquer would be awesome.
There we go.
I mean,
Conquer.
I don't see it coming.
We didn't see Banjo coming, so who knows?
Yeah.
Andres, what character do you think will be added or want to be added, or both?
So I'm gonna tell you that the answer is probably something I'm not gonna say. So that's what it's gonna be. What I think sort of makes sense is for there to be another Metroid character revealed, maybe a Chozo, maybe Emmy. It would be in the September Direct, right before Dread. It would help to sort of support all the hype and marketing they've been doing. Conceivably, I could see that happening. I'm sure some people were like, oh, what if it's a Pokemon? Not out of the question, but I don't think so. I like to think that Fire Spice Volume 2 will end with 3 Nintendo characters, 3 third-party characters, but they may end it on a third-party character. And I'll tell you, now that it's at the end, while I would love for there to be another Metroid character, I wouldn't mind it if they got in one more kind of character that like a lot of people have been really wanting for a long time. Personally, if there's just one more character they could put in that I think would be absolutely fitting more than any other, it would be Rayman. Why? Because Rayman's been wanted and requested for so many years, and Nintendo and Ubisoft have such a great relationship. It's strange that of all the companies that have a playable character, Ubisoft doesn't. So I feel like Rayman deserves to be that final character, but just because Rayman deserves to be the final character doesn't mean he will be the final character. But if you're asking what I want Rayman.
So 2 things. You really expect me to let it go that you just kind of sort of hinted that you might know what the character is, but I'm not going to say it, so I'm just going to go on this tangent of stuff.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't know.
I mean, the way you worded your initial start, that was kind of like,
know.
I know something, but nope, so I'll just speculate on things that aren't going to happen.
I'm telling you.
Little spin doctrine. For those that watch Pat McAfee's show, I can't just forget the word that just came. Go back and rewind the tape, everyone. He kind of said something there that's like, yeah, but hey, he does. By the way, he does this a lot. If you ever listen to his podcast, he'll like bring something up like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't be saying that. So let me just spin this into.
I'm trying to be as sincere as possible. I do not know who the final character will be. I do not know.
Is that a political answer?
No, it's not. Now, I will also say that occasionally I might know something. Today is not that day. Okay? I'm simply telling you based off my own intuition and history of trying to predict Smash characters, you almost always get it wrong.
Something that he's not going to predict.
So
yeah.
Setting that aside, I do think, by the way, that it's going to be an Ubisoft character. I don't think it's going to be Rayman. And I think it's not going to be Rayman because I don't think Rayman's relevant anymore. I think his relevancy is out the window. There's going to be hardcore fans that want him, and that's fine. But for the final Smash character, if they ask Ubisoft, what character do you want in the game, they ain't going to say Rayman.
Rabbit or Rosalina.
I mean, a Rabbit character, I guess. The Rabbids are probably more relevant today than Rayman himself is, even though the Rabbids originated from that series. But reality is, because of Mario and Rabbids are more relevant. Rabbids also got their own TV show. Rayman didn't. So, like, Rayman's relevancy is kind of gone by the way. I mean, when's the last Rayman game we even had?
Yeah. But I'll also tell you, relevancy isn't the sole deciding factor. So
No, it's not. But I also think that if this is the final character, which Sakurai has said it is, there's no more characters coming, that they're going to want to do something that's going to actually make fans excited, because there's been some of the more recent announcements haven't exactly made people happy, and it could be because they're saving the big one for the end. And the big one, by the way, it could be a first-party Nintendo character. Nintendo wants to advertise, whatever they want to advertise. Because Nintendo, by the way, Nintendo picked all the characters. Nintendo picked them all. So, according to Sakurai, Nintendo picked them. So it could be a Nintendo character, a big one that people want from a major IP. I mean, I would love if it's Fire Emblem just to troll everyone. That would be hilarious. I hope that the final cinematic trolls everyone into thinking it's a Fire Emblem character. That would just be great. And have it not be a Fire Emblem character, but the whole time you think it's Fire Emblem. That would be awesome. I would love watching fans get pissed off for like that first 30 seconds that you're like, oh my fucking god, it's another sword fighter from Fire Emblem. Which, by the way, it very well might be another Fire Emblem character. I can't dismiss
the other
that.
thing I want to put out there is that I think a lot of people have this narrative that the final character is going to be like the big final climactic reveal. And it's going to be for some people, but for most people it's not. Because that's how every single character is.
Yeah.
There's going to be a group of people the character really appeals to. And then there's a whole bunch of other people that will be like, oh, that's cool. And there'll be other people like, oh, that's stupid. How dare you, Sakurai.
I look at it like this. When
that's how it's gonna
Banjo-Kazooie
be.
was announced, right, a lot of people like me just went nuts. But the sales of that character, people buy the pack and get all of them, but they also sell them individually. It's actually the lowest selling individual character of all of them. So, the relevancy of Banjo-Kazooie wasn't really there. It's not a relevant IP anymore. People don't even know what the hell that thing is. So they see, oh, it's a bear with a bird. What the fuck is that? And people don't know because they didn't play the games. They didn't grow up on it. And yes, by the way, Smash does add, exactly like Rayman, and these characters that used to be super relevant and have a long history. But they also sometimes add current-day popular characters. And that's, like when Joker got added. That was a current-day popular character. Shin Megami Tensei is a deeper IP. It's been around even longer. Persona spun off of that. But it was a more modern character that got added. So I look at this as, we haven't had a modern character added in a while.
So
we really haven't.
Ubisoft character.
They've been kind of digging into the well for a little bit. And I feel like if you look at this pack, one, it makes sense to be a Nintendo character based on they just did 2 third parties in a row, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. This whole last pack could be mostly third parties, and that's fine. I do think it's going to be Ubisoft because of that partnership and because how well Mario and Rabbids did, and I feel like there is Ubisoft and Nintendo have kind of always been a little good together. They've been good together. It's not like the EA promising the world to Nintendo with the Wii U and then just pulling out because the Wii U wasn't what they thought it would be. Ubisoft and Nintendo they don't always get. By the way, Nintendo doesn't get most of Ubisoft's games. All their best-selling games pretty much don't go to Nintendo. But
Ubisoft also makes a lot of pretty good exclusives for Nintendo, and they partner up a lot.
Well, yeah, they partner up a lot. We also do get some of the older games when they remaster them, like we got the Assassin's Creed stuff. So and that kind of gets me to my point. Despite costumes, despite other things existing, because we have seen that characters have been announced that have had content already in the game. That's happened. We've had characters come in. It used to be, if there's content for said character in the game, a costume, an item, this or that, they're not going to get announced for the game because they're already in, quote unquote, in the game. I think an assassin from Assassin's Creed is getting in. Because that's an IP that's super relevant, selling really, really big, and Ubisoft would, if Nintendo came to them and said, we want Rayman, of course they're going to say yes. But Ubisoft might go, but like we would really like it to be this, and we also have Assassin's
So-
Creed games on your platform, so like
I will tell you this: there was already an Assassin's Creed me costume.
But that's what I noted. We have seen where items, costumes, etc., haven't necessarily meant the characters can't come.
It's not a
It's not. It's
deconfirmation.
rare. It's rare. But
No, it's Banjo-Kazooie.
oh, Jesus. Anyways,
Sorry, I had to.
anyways,
I had to.
you bastard. I don't even want to think of rare of the company. Although then again, like Sea of Thieves is really good, and it could be. By the way,
When did
guys,
we get the
it could
Assassin's
be. It could be
Creed
something
me
like you want to talk
costume?
about big, relevant, current day, and also old school Master Chief. Throw Master Chief in the game. Like,
Oh,
That would
actually,
be
I was going to
huge.
get to
I mean,
that.
that would be massive.
So
There's a
actually,
Halo
let's
Infinite game coming out.
stay there. If there is a character that can be added that would qualify as a big final climactic reveal, it would be Master Chief.
Plus, there's a new Halo
that
game.
is-
It's like the perfect timing.
It actually so if there's a time for Nintendo and Microsoft to announce this rumored collaboration that's a little
what-
bit
yeah,
beyond
what if
the
that's
normal
what it
scope
was
of
the
their
whole time? Master
collaborations,
Chief and Smash.
this would be it. Because I mean, we just got confirmation from Phil Spencer that Game Pass is not coming to Switch. So if we're not getting Game Pass, what is that
What
collaboration?
is the Switch for?
I think what?
What is the Switch
Yeah.
on? Phil,
And wouldn't it be crazy to me? Hold on, this will be even crazier because
Microsoft's
people have
thing.
thought we don't need Game Pass as an example to get some of Microsoft's games, right? And they're really pushing Halo Infinite. What if in this direct? Because we haven't even got into what they're going to announce in this direct yet, besides the Smash character.
Sure. Well, this is a good starting point.
What if? And this is something I didn't even put in my video because I did a whole hey, what could they do? Xenoblade 3, all this other stuff. What if the Microsoft collaboration isn't just Master Chief and Smash? That's a big deal. That's cool. Halo Infinite's going out, makes sense. But what if it's also because the Master Chief collection's coming to Switch natively?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And so it's a
that
dual
will-
announcement.
That if okay, so when I say that's what I think, I'm not saying that's 100% what's happening, but that is like
A logical
Master
thought
Chief-
process.
yeah, if Master Chief is going to be that character, which I actually think there's a decent chance of, considering the rumors and such, and that there needs to be something, I could see that, and it would then bleed beautifully well into a Master Chief collection announcement as well.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
Microsoft would also love it. Be like, oh, Microsoft will get Master Chief sale, but they'll also love it because it'll help push people to be like, okay, Halo, what's that next Halo? Oh, it's Halo Infinite. Oh, do I have to buy an Xbox? No, you can play it on your phone. You can play it on your PC. Just get Game Pass. Just get xCloud. Like it goes into everything Microsoft is pushing by targeting a new audience to try to be like Nintendo tried to do with phone games. Oh, we're going to put this game on phones and then release a new game on Switch.
Yeah.
Now Microsoft could be like, look, we've made a lot of money off of this. We're not really going to make any more. It's already on Game Pass. Let's just throw this on Switch because it can run it. Also get Master Chief and Smash. It's kind of like a perfect marriage. It's great for Nintendo fans and it's great for Microsoft. Like people always say, Microsoft keeps giving to Nintendo. What's Nintendo going to give back? Advertising for Halo Infinite because you're going to have Halo on the platform.
Oh God.
So
the cinematic is gonna be.
Oh.
It's cinematic.
I mean,
hold on.
it's gonna freak
Hold on.
people out because,
Hold
by the way, because the
Hold on.
cinematic, if it's Master Chief, is gonna involve Metroid, and people are gonna flip thinking it's Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah. No.
That would be another really nice thing to do, because they're probably gonna talk about Metroid later into the
Well,
direct anyway.
Remember the last character reveal when it was Ganondorf, and people were like, "Oh shit, is this like Breath of the Wild?" And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
but
that's
there
what I
was still
think it's
going to
gonna be
be a
one of
big
those
Zelda,
moments if it
but
is
there was still a lot
Master
of good Zelda stuff towards the end, so it was kind of teasing that, right?
Yeah.
Playing with our emotions because they know we expect Metroid, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Not saying that we'll see Prime 4, Prime Trilogy in the direct. I think both of those things, the earliest we see it is the Game Awards this year, but even then, that's kind of maybe a stretch. Yeah, I think we're on the same page though. Like that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's so many possibilities
Yeah, I know,
that
And what makes sense isn't always like what they do. Like knowing our luck, it's going to end up being like some dude from Among Us or something. It's going to be like some random character none of us were even
Aye
thinking
from
of.
Monkey Ball.
Just gets dropped in.
Which, by the way, I just want to say, Super Monkey Ball.
Super Monkey.
Mania.
That's what I said. It's going to be
That's
something
a-
nobody saw coming. Some people are going to be happy, and other people are going to be like, "Really? That's the last one we're getting." It's like, oh, you weren't going to get your favorite character. None of us. By the way, none of us are getting our favorite characters in Smash unless it's some
already
obscure
got them.
character that nobody's talking
No. Smash Ultimate has already done its job for me. I got Ridley, I got King K. Rool, I got Banjo and Kazooie, and then I got Pyramith from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like all of those characters were like the characters I always dreamed about getting, and I got them all. So Smash Ultimate has proven itself to me to be the ultimate Smash. Like they did its job. The only other character that I'm like, is Rayman. Like just because of like legacy and history. Like I feel like Rayman should be there more than any other character from that perspective alone. But then you get in Master Chief, and I'm like, "Whew, that's pretty damn cool."
Yeah, like, you can't. It's like Master Chief said, like nobody can deny. Okay, like that's a big deal. Like that'd
be huge.
It's a
even
big
if
deal.
you don't like Halo, it's like Halo.
And it would,
still
what it
deal,
would do?
so.
It would also cement the sort of like marriage or relationship between Nintendo and Microsoft.
It would
like,
also make people go, "Oh, so just because Phil Spencer said Game Pass ain't coming now, it doesn't mean it's never gonna come."
Mm-hmm.
It will fuel more speculation.
It'll fuel if Microsoft and Nintendo are willing to bring Halo and bring Master Chief, like okay, like all bets are off for what happens in the future. Maybe we get Elder Scrolls 6 on the next Nintendo platform. Like nobody.
I could see again. I have a hard time believing Nintendo will ever just let Game Pass as is be on a Nintendo platform.
I think some changes will have to be made down the line for that. And by the way, since Phil Spencer kind of shut it down, I would say Game Pass probably isn't going to happen on this platform anyways. I think next gen.
We're on the same page.
The best bet for.
We're on the same page
because I can see Nintendo and Microsoft, a lot of their conversation around Game Pass being centered on xCloud, and Nintendo trying to maybe combine all their streaming games into some sort of service they could do in the future. And Microsoft is like, hey, you said service. We do that. Let's make this work. Let's make something palpable. Where we both profit
I think
and make
part of the
money.
problem is infrastructure, right? The infrastructure right now on the Switch platform, it doesn't quite match up to what Microsoft wants with their platform.
Microsoft structure.
But
I mean, it would.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I would love a Nintendo branded Xbox Live and just have that be the whole backend for Switch, but that's not gonna happen. Nintendo isn't going to... I mean, I would love for them to do it, charge the same money Microsoft does, and then it's just a 50-50 split for both companies. And by the way, that would actually be more than Switch Online makes them per month, because that would be $30. But actually be way more, because it's $20 a year. So, like, but still, it's... I just don't see... we don't really know. It's all behind-the-scenes crap that we're just all speculating.
Yeah.
So let's get into the bigger, grander...
I have an idea.
What's your idea?
For this cinematic, though.
Oh
if it was Master Chief...
Okay.
I like the trolling opening, but at some point in time when just before they are announced to just go to announce Master Chief, all of a sudden the screen just goes like something dramatic happens. Screen goes black, and all of a sudden you hear the Halo freaking.
Oh, that's how they would probably do it.
It's like holy shit!
I assume they would do that.
Oh yeah.
No, never mind. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I like that. We always come up with the craziest ideas. Remember when I said? Remember when we had the whole how Reggie was going to unveil the next system? Yeah. And then obviously they didn't do that because they weren't doing live events anymore. But we speculated on a potential live event with things coming out of the floor.
Things coming out of the floor.
Yeah. But not obviously. Then they stopped doing live events, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Although those were fun back in the old podcast days. That was back when there was still hope that Nintendo would do live E3s. Yeah. That was before they stopped doing them. All right. So for the rest of this direct, we talked a lot about Smash. What else do we think is going to happen? I'm going to kick it to Eric first before all the good ideas are taken.
Sports Story.
Sports Story. Okay.
We haven't seen anything from it.
It's a good one.
It's supposed to come this year.
It wasn't shown in Indie World. It's still listed as 2021, and Nintendo paid for it to be made, so that could be why it's not in the Indie World. So.
Yeah.
Sports Story.
I like it.
We got a Silk Song update yet?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What is up with that game? We played a demo of it at E3. It looked so polished and felt so...
Yeah.
Haven't seen it since. It's like it doesn't exist. It's like vaporware, but it's not. They said it's still real. And by the way, it's made by a really tiny team. So I mentioned this in another podcast episode, I think, or maybe it was in a separate video. I talk so much on my channel, I have no idea. I'll say this. The team is really small, and I'm wondering if over this pandemic period, if they've had any COVID issues that might have caused them to like just stop making the game, and that's why we haven't heard it, because they've been dealing with some health problems in the families, because it's literally like a 3-person team that makes that game. So it's very possible like one COVID incident could just stop development. Any family member, it doesn't even have to be them directly. So it's kind of I can kind of understand if that happened, that they would cause a delay. But they did say it's still in development quite recently. It's just we're not going to show it here. We're not going to show it. Okay, well, people just want to know, like, when are we going to see it? Like, oh, it's still in development. Don't worry about it. It's going to come when it comes. Any other games, Eric? In sports? I didn't see the Sports Story coming. That's a good one.
Good one.
I'd like to see a little bit more of Lego Star Wars.
Okay.
Like actually more, but probably not gonna happen because we just saw.
Yeah, we just saw it at
just
Gamescom.
saw
I don't think that'll.
It's probably not gonna.
That
happen.
comes out next year, so I think we'll see potentially at like a spring direct before it comes out. I could see it maybe
Yeah.
because they did show it in a previous direct, I believe.
Yeah.
As like a highlight clip like a couple years ago.
Yeah, I was just looking up some games before this, but that was the one that stuck out the most to me that I want to see the most.
And you want to see the ones. So question for you: do you think like Metro Prime 4 or Bayonetta 3 pop up here?
Probably not. Maybe Bayonetta.
I feel
Prime-
like
Prime 4
people think
probably not.
Bayonetta's going to get unveiled before Metroid. I feel like that's what people are feeling.
I have a feeling that, like I've said this before, I have a feeling that Prime 4 is going to be E3 next year.
Okay. Well, I think the one reason that people feel like Bayonetta will be unveiled either now or maybe at the Game Awards. Well, Game Awards makes sense because it was unveiled initially at the Game Awards, so that's the whole connection there. Plus, Nintendo feels like that game fits a broader audience, so it's a good way to draw attraction. But also, I think it's because Kamiya, the director of the game, got so frustrated with people asking about it and them continuing to give, hey, development's going well. And he literally said, we would love to show the game. Nintendo owns that game. They decide when it's shown. Which made me feel like the game's ready. It's almost done. Nintendo's just like keeping the bullet in the chamber to decide when are we going to time this and announce it and release it. Because I feel like Kamiya got so frustrated. People asking like, hey, we'd love to show.
It's not us.
But it's not us. It's Nintendo. And he hasn't really said anything. And if you guys know Kamiya, he speaks his mind. And Nintendo knows intimately that he speaks his mind, I'm sure. He's probably already complained directly to Nintendo that, hey, why can't we show this game yet? People won't stop bitching about it. And Nintendo's like, And he probably said, you're right. You paid for it. You own it. You decide when it's time. So, by the way, guys, stop pestering him. Stop getting disappointed. Like there's that event happening where Platinum's going to show off games and it's not going to be. Stop getting upset. It's Nintendo.
If anything, pester Nintendo.
So, will Nintendo unveil it at this September Direct? I don't think so, personally. I think Game Awards is a much higher chance of it because I don't think it's coming this year. Now, if it's going to release this year, it's going to be like I do think. I guess I'm going to ask Andres this. Do you think Nintendo's going to unveil any new games we don't know about yet that are coming this year?
Not that are being published by Nintendo unless it's like some sort of eShop release. Like, no, there will be no physical retail games that will be announced in the Direct that will come out this year unless it's a Smash Ultimate Complete Edition, which is already a game that exists. It would just have the DLC. Like, that's the only thing that can maybe be announced that will come out physically. There could be a couple small eShop titles that come out digitally, like, for example, maybe a Kirby game that's just announced and it comes out like a month or two from now. Something like that. But otherwise, no. Nothing for this year.
So I think, and this is just...
There could be DLC stuff.
Yeah, DLC, obviously. Yeah. I think that there is a chance, a small chance, but a chance that there is some game in December that's going to come out in the middle of the month that they just are holding back, and I don't know what it is. The reason I say this is because we have seen Nintendo unveil a game and release it in 2 months.
Yeah.
They've been doing this the entire Switch. So it's not like there's not enough time to unveil a game and drop it in December. And I kept thinking, what game makes sense to maybe do that with? Sure, you could argue Kirby. Kirby usually doesn't have super long run-ups and when they release the physical games. Like it could just be the Kirby game they've been working on. And it could be the DK game that we've heard rumors of. Like it's like a DK game maybe. Like there's chances. I keep thinking, and some people are mad that I say this because they'll feel like it's not a long enough run-up and that Nintendo's doing the franchise dirty or something. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 dropping in December. Unveiled now. They love talking about, like you saw what they did with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the long segments, showing off a ton of the game, 3-month run-up to release. They have actually released major games in December in the past on Switch. Smash is one of them.
Xenoblade 2 is another.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like if you think Xeno 3 should be next year, look at all the big games already that we know about. All of those games are going to be bigger and overshadow this game. Now, yes, they did technically release Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in the midst of a whole bunch of big games in 2017, so it's not like they're not willing to do that. But they might be like, we want to kind of give this its own couple-month window and just let it kind of see what it can do. See if it can give us that final boost in sales right before Christmas, heading into the next month, and just see what happens. Because they've already done it with other games and they've done well. So it's not like they're throwing it out to die. Xenoblade 3 is probably never going to end up being a major holiday title anyways, in terms of being, that's what we dropped in November of 2022. Probably not.
In terms of quality and scope, it is the kind of game that would be worthy of a holiday release. But I'm just going to say
I don't think
this.
Nintendo looks at it as something that's going to sell well enough to be that game,
But I don't think it's going to come out this year at all. I think there's like basically zero chance. And the main reason for that is because Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp is coming out December 3rd.
Yeah, but that's like right at the beginning of the month, and I don't think that precludes releasing something 2 weeks later.
I just think that would be too little of a window for Xenoblade to come out before Christmas, and then also have a short window of being announced to release. And then also last year we did see those short windows, but that was a weird pandemic year. Nintendo's kind of gone back to a little closer to normal sort of announcement to release window. So I don't think so. I mean, I know you're saying that as a possibility, right? I'm not
saying it's going to happen. We could talk about if Xenoblade 3 is going to get shown at all, which, maybe it will be.
I mean, I'm definitely, if I had to pick between Xenoblade 3 and Donkey Kong getting announced in the September Direct, I'm going to pick Xenoblade 3. Just because I feel like Xenoblade 3 might need a little bit more of a marketing window, actually, to sort of build up hype for that.
Does it?
So,
I'm asking
does it?
Because I'm asking because Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition sold like crazy and did exactly what I'm saying Xenoblade 3 is going to do.
Well, Xenoblade 2 sold like 2.5 million, 3 million, so that's pretty good. But Donkey Kong is a stronger seller, and that's before the Switch era. So, like. Yeah, Donkey Kong is stronger, just inherently.
I'm just gonna glance at the sales because I don't remember Donkey Kong sales actually being that high, like of the new games. Yeah,
compared to Xenoblade.
I mean, let me just see like Donkey Kong 3, 1 million units.
Look at modern Donkey Kong releases.
Recent games here.
Like Tropical Freeze on Wii U sold like 4 million.
Like 4 million, but then like let's see here, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. I obviously, if you're just looking at, let's just say, just look at Switch. Let's just set aside the Wii U. It sold 2.93 million on Switch. I mean, that's right around Xenoblade. So is Donkey Kong really a bigger deal? It's a bigger deal to Nintendo because it's like an OG 40-year-old character.
Yes, it is, because that is a game that, 1, came out after Xenoblade. 2, it was had like no work done for it, and it's just a remaster, barely, of a game that came out just a few years ago, which sold far more than any other Xenoblade game. By far more, I mean like
it's only 400,000 more units. It's not like crazy.
No, I'm talking about the initial release. It sold like 4 or 5.
Okay, so the reason I went away from some of the initial releases is they're on older. They came on older.
My only point is that Donkey Kong has is more known. People know what Donkey Kong is. So my point simply is that if we're talking about which game should be announced first, I think Xenoblade 3. But also, they could do either. Like, Donkey Kong from what I know, Donkey Kong's been ready for a while to get an announcement.
Maybe.
So,
from what we heard from rumors. That's why I said maybe Donkey Kong could be a game they announce and then do a drop in December.
It's one or the other, right? Like, we're splitting hairs here is really what I'm getting at. Like, I personally think Xenoblade 3 needs a little bit more of a window, but they could also announce both in the September Direct.
Yeah. Well,
there's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Xenoblade 3... as like fans of Xenoblade, you feel like that should get a treatment like Zelda. It should get a long run-up period like Zelda gets. But that's not really what they've done. Xenoblade X was announced and released super quick. The original Xenoblade felt like it had a long run-up, but if you actually look at when it was announced and released in Japan, it didn't. The only one that did was Xenoblade 2, And even then, they didn't really
January
start
to
marketing
December.
it till after E3 of that year, even though we knew it existed.
No, so the thing with Xenoblade though is that
And then Xenoblade Definitive
if
Edition was
Xenoblade
recently
3
released
is actually getting announced soon, like if that whole rumor is true, what that suggests is that there has been a big plan to sort of market this. Because first you got to go back to Xenoblade 2 and its DLC. Its DLC included a few different things. One, there was the like, because you know how the DLC with Nintendo is always like 2 packs, right? The first pack included Shulk and Rex going into a converging world and fighting together through a portal. Then there was Torn of the Golden Country, which had its own separate release. But then you go into Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which came out in 2019, right? Yeah,
Definitive Edition?
It came
I
out.
was just looking at it.
Came out early 2020, actually.
2020.
Yeah, early 2020, like May 2020. So they came out then, which wasn't that long ago. But that had a Future Connected. Future Connected was also teasing future things to be connected through alternative realms. I'm not going to spoil the story for Xenoblade 1 and 2, but they are also connected. So all of this is like a lead up, a build up, teasing these different things. And the next thing that happens is Pyra and Mythra in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which then further boosted sales. So all of these things have been a build up. And I think I talked about it with you on Sunday, but like the trailer for Pyra and Mythra was a unique trailer because it was actually made by Monolith Soft, not the Smash team. It's the first time they ever did that. And they also even created another like vertical slice video as well. All of this was meant as to push the series, right? So right now there's a bit of momentum there. So that kind of also adds more fuel to my thinking that if they're going to pick one of the two, you do Xenoblade because right now it's still relatively known. There's still some momentum still trickling over. With Donkey Kong, you kind of be starting from scratch again, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's that legacy.
Based on the rumors,
but
it's like starting over anyways, basically.
Right. So, I think with Xenoblade, you got to announce it sooner than later if you're trying to take advantage of all that different stuff I just mentioned as a lead up for it.
Which kind of leads to my idea that it comes out in December because it won't need such a long run up because there's already momentum for the franchise. And the last one didn't have any momentum. They just announced and then brought out the Definitive Edition. And
I could see it coming out potentially in the first half of 2022.
By the way, guys, you could
see
also,
it
just to throw this out here, like I know I'm pushing December. If you actually kind of look at Nintendo's release slate, it's usually like the first week of January they toss out a game that's going to sell.
I could see Xenoblade 3 coming out next May. They use Definitive Edition to come out May 2020, right? So why not just 2 years later give us Xenoblade 3?
Sure,
it worked out relatively well.
But I'm still
like a pre-summer game.
Obviously, I want Xenoblade Chronicles 3 sooner than later, so there's obviously a little bias in there. But also, I keep thinking, I look at Nintendo's release slate, and maybe this is just me. I see their release slate as their system sellers Mario Party. And then obviously Pokemon. But like from Nintendo's side of things, it's Mario Party. It's gonna.
I think Metroid Dread is gonna do pretty darn good.
It's not doing 15 million like Mario Party does.
Maybe 5.
Yeah, exactly. It might become the best-selling Metroid of all time, which is amazing. It ain't doing 15 million. Mario Party, the last one did 15. High chance this one's going over 10 at least.
Mario Party and Pokemon are both going to be probably the best-selling games.
Yeah, those are going to be the things selling units, especially to families and kids this holiday season. It's going to be those games that are going to really be pushing things. And that's fine.
I don't know. Dread might surprise us, though. Like, I'm calling 5 million, but it might exceed that.
And
15 is definitely a stretch. But,
I would love to see Metroid Dread somehow get close to 10 and just shock the world. And that's cool. But also, as people say, from our perspective as like just gamers, we shouldn't really care how well it sells. We should just care it's a great game. Fine. But I also look at it as Nintendo cares about sales. Metroid, I think, is going to exceed any sales, maybe even Nintendo's own expectations. But
stronger sales mean more games.
Yeah. That's if people want to know why. That's the argument in a nutshell why we care about it. Strong sales mean we're getting more. Metroid Dread sells well. Also, that won't be the last side-scrolling Metroid we get. We're going to get more.
Yeah.
But I look at this as, well, if their big seller is really from Nintendo's side of things, they're looking at Mario Party. That's the one that's going to really push the sales. Metroid Dread, sure, the hardcore fans might help switch OLEDs day one. All this, that's fine. But also, that's not what they're really leaning on to be their holiday seller. They're leaning on, they're going to lean into marketing because Mario Party games kind of sell themselves. They don't really need a ton of marketing for Mario Party games. It's a new Mario Party. It's going to sell well because every Mario Party game sells well. They don't really have to push it that much. where Metroid Dread will need a bit more pushing, which they've already kind of been doing anyways. I mean, as we saw in the chat, a lot of people don't know they've been pushing it, but they have been.
I mean, there's been the trailers. Like, there's some things.
Yeah,
Like
there's some.
the trailers were trending. So
Well, sure. But like trending, I don't know about you, but I like go to trending and I see, oh yeah, it's trending, 4,000 people. That's nothing. Like, go to the overall trending tab and you see 1.5 million is what's trending. So it's like, okay.
You know
Like
what?
the trending,
Let's look
remember,
up.
people that see trending, it's all localized. So it might be trending for me, it might not be trending for somebody else.
Let's look at Metroid Dread, the latest trailer, Glimpse of Dread. If that even hit 1 million views.
I think it did. I didn't. I didn't look at the numbers on it. And by the way, guys, when you look, sometimes numbers on like trailers on YouTube are a good indicator of what's going to really sell well. Just like Spider-Man, look at all the numbers on those trailers. It's going to have maybe big box office records because it's exclusive at theaters, the first weekend, anyways. So let's see here. Metroid Dread.
It hit 500,000 5 days ago.
So like the announcement
still
trailer
good.
has almost 2 million.
Right, but the latest trailer that came out August 20th.
575,000, which, I mean, that's not bad.
It's
But, like,
also
that's not
fair.
crazy.
It's also worth noting that the trailer is shared by other websites and channels as the trailer. Sometimes people might watch it like on GameSpot or IGN and not, or Game Explain, not actually watch it like on Nintendo's page. So that definitely like diverts views.
Well, I know, but it's still a pretty good indicator. Like, you look at that, and then you go to like WarioWare, Get It Together, 129,000. Well, I could probably safely tell you it's going to sell less than Metroid. It's probably going to sell less than Metroid just based on
Right. I mean, it's
alone.
definitely it shows some level of its popularity for sure. But another thing I'm seeing Paco Salvador bringing up in the chat, Shin Megami Tensei 5 comes out in November. Like, that's a big Japanese RPG.
Oh yeah, and they're going to
Just
push it.
saying-
Like we said, they're probably going to do an individual.
Well,
direct for
I
it.
think the argument that was being made though is that, do you really think they would release another big Japanese RPG just a month later, also in the month of Advance Wars 1 2 Reboot Camp, with a short sort of announcement to reveal window?
Absolutely, because Nintendo likes money.
I don't know. I think it's probably better saved.
I think a
for
majority
little
of
bit
Shin
later.
Megami Tensei 5 money goes back to the studio that made it. So Nintendo won't like. I don't think releasing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 like a month or so later does a game dirty. If your game's great, it should sell anyways. Like we just got done saying, Xenoblade Chronicles isn't that big of a selling series anyways. Shin Megami Tensei is a bigger franchise.
To your point, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl comes out a week away from it as well.
Okay, so
Um,
then Advance Wars 1 2 Reboot Camp. Why is that coming out then?
December 3rd, that's like 3 weeks later, and it's not a Japanese RPG.
Okay, and if it comes out in the middle of December, it's a month past both those games. So what's the point?
I just think
Reboot
Advance
Camp, I don't
Wars
think
1
they
2
care about Reboot Camp's one of those games that's just going to sell to the people that like it, and that is. I don't think any game can really.
It's not gonna. I mean, it's
overshadow
not
that
gonna
game.
be like
I
a
think
5 million seller.
Like if you're like me, I think
Watching
Advance
people.
Wars is like you already know right now if you're buying it or not. It's not one of those games that's like something else
I'm
releases and
buying
oh no, now you're not going to buy Advance Wars.
I'm definitely buying it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, and
It's
so am
gonna
I.
be- It's
I
gonna
love
be
Advance
my
Wars. But
December
it's one of
game.
those. You
Now,
already know
Xenoblade
if you're
3
gonna buy
does
it or
come out in
not.
December.
Something else could come out the very next day. It's not.
I'm
gonna
buying
break the
both,
sales,
but
you know?
yeah. I mean, either way, like Xenoblade 3, like I think we're fairly close to an announcement. I don't know if it's gonna actually get announced in this direct.
You want to
but
know what's crazy?
There's a decent chance.
Baldo, okay, indie game, right? Probably gonna do really, really well on Switch. That's like 400,000 views. It's like getting Metroid trailer views. That's insane to me. I know, guys. By the way, there's a number of indie games that sold multiple millions on Switch, so like it's not like shocking that an indie game's gonna maybe outsell something from
Yeah.
Nintendo. It's not.
But also, that Metroid Dread trailer is not the main Metroid Dread trailer. It's
Well,
one
no,
of
the
a
reveal
few
trailer.
different ones. So,
But you can
yeah.
argue that Baldo trailer is
Yeah.
not the main Baldo trailer. We've known about this game for a while, so it's not like it's new.
But let's kind of continue though. So, unless there's a game I want to talk about. Is my point. Because we're talking about like what games could be coming out. Because you've made reference that maybe Xenoblade 3 should come out in this year because maybe next year there's going to be a lot of big games coming out, so it deserves to have some space.
We talked about 3 big third-party games coming next year.
This is what I'm sort of thinking right now. I see obviously Legends Arceus is January. There could be something smaller in February maybe, but I think March gets something. And I don't think it's Xenoblade. I think Xenoblade. I actually kind of like the May month for Xenoblade. May, maybe June around there. Xenoblade 3 comes out. But or they save it for even later, which is super like possible. But for March, I see Splatoon 3 happening.
Yeah.
Could. I mean, they did release Splatoon 2
like if
early.
everything that Samus Hunter has been saying is legitimate, like we're gonna know. Like Splatoon 3, like that's when it would happen. It makes sense. Now maybe it doesn't come out. I mean, to close out the fiscal year, they usually do something. So we'll find out during this direct. Like we're gonna know.
Well, yeah, they tend to release at
is.
least one big game in March, even at the end of March. They don't care. Something to end the fiscal year
Yeah.
with a few million. So could be Splatoon 3.
10
I've always
plus
kind
million
of felt like
selling
Splatoon 3
games,
is more
so.
of a summer game. Granted, Splatoon 2 wasn't. Splatoon 2 came out earlier, so I feel like, because like I kept thinking like what could be that big March game, because it feels like that's traditionally what they've been doing with Switch. What's going to be that big game?
Whatever it is, if it is anything, we're gonna learn about it in this direct, right?
Oh, I was gonna say,
Like,
I kept wondering. I wonder, and this would be very interesting if Nintendo goes this route. So, Sparks of Hope is up for Game of Show at Gamescom, which probably means somewhere it's playable for media somewhere because they're the ones that put it up.
Yeah.
Well, if that's playable already, could that be the March game? Because the first game actually sold really, really well. Like, really well. It didn't do, not how Splatoon numbers, of course. We all know that's become almost a tentpole franchise at this point. You know it's probably going to sell over 10 mil, guaranteed. It's up there now. Awesome. But I wonder, would they be like, you know what? Let's give March to Sparks of Hope. Do it towards the end. It's probably going to sell a couple million out the gate. That'll help push some Switch sales right before the end. And they don't have to wait so long, because then it could be like April or May. That's when they end up dropping, say, Splatoon 3 or something. So they still get that sales boost right at the end of the month. That helps boost them. And they don't have to worry about the long tail sales because they already know we got Splatoon 3 coming, we got Breath of the Wild 2 coming, we got whatever the hell else they decide to release that next year coming. They already have a massive slate. So they just kind of need that little kick, and it gives them kind of their own window. And Nintendo can help push that Ubisoft partnership even more by saying, hey, we're going to push you as our big investor. End of, we get some money from this, you get some money from this, we sell more Switches. Everyone kind of wins. Now, I get it. Nintendo first-party game, massive seller, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Mario, Zelda. I mean, I know there's some people that are still holding out hope that Zelda releases March. Obviously, that would end up being phenomenal. The Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 trailer has 7 million views, which is like more than any other video, including directs, get on Nintendo's channel, period. Obviously, Breath of the Wild has a chance to maybe sell 10 million in the first freaking week. That's how.
I think it's worth noting, though, that most Zelda fans rewatch trailers.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
But Breath of the
still,
Wild,
it's big.
Breath of the Wild has sold almost 25 million.
If you count Wii U sales, I'm pretty sure it is over 25
It
million.
is, if you count Wii U sales.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
and at Switch launch, more copies of Breath of the Wild for Switch sold than Switches sold because there weren't enough Switches. Mm-hmm. So like, that was Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild 2 is doing numbers on everything that nothing even compares to. I'm honestly convinced first full week, maybe not the first weekend because it usually releases on Friday, maybe first full week of sales, I wouldn't be shocked if we find out the very next month or when they do their next investor meeting, the thing's over 10 million already, just like that.
First day.
Like, I don't know. By the way, I'm not saying that it's going to keep that momentum and be able to hit the 30 million plus, like Animal Crossing and other. I don't know if it's going to even outsell the original Breath of the Wild. But I think it's hitting 10 million like that. And so for people that want to be like, oh, what's a big game? It's anniversary of Switch coming out, anniversary for Breath of the Wild. Would make sense to drop it then. And to be fair, they didn't say when in 2022 we're getting that game. So the whole year's open. But, I mean, I realistically expect it to be their holiday game. Because, again, it would do that for the holidays as well. And especially if they do, I know some people don't want to think about it, but if Switch Pro is a thing and they do decide to release that a year next holiday, it would make sense to kind of put those two together. Again, I don't even know if Pro's happening, but if it is still a thing, that could be why they're holding. So, but
Right.
the point is, like, I get it. A big game released in March, they traditionally do it. Usually it's Nintendo first party. Wasn't it Rise this year, though?
Yeah.
So I think Sparks of Hope can do Rise numbers. Look at the original sales of the first one. So, I mean...
See, I guess Monster Hunter Rise appeals way more to me than Sparks of Hope does. So I guess my perspective is a little skewed on this.
Well, there's a personal preference involved, yeah.
But I definitely, I mean, I understand. Like, Sparks of Hope is a strong seller. If I had to give it an early, like,
Yeah,
if it's going to
Sparks
come
of
out
Hope
this fiscal year.
So Sparks of Hope's world premiere trailer on Nintendo's channel has almost 2 million views.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big game.
Yeah,
I don't, I'm not, I am not.
It game's crossing 5 mil easy. You know?
It's going to be a big game.
I wonder what the original sold.
Just doesn't strike me as a fiscal year ending game, though. Even though I know it's going to sell really well, and I know that may sound odd. It's just, there's just something about the games that do come out to close those fiscal years that tend to have a little bit of a, there's something to them that just has a little bit of a different feel. Do you know what I'm trying to get at, or no? Because
I mean, I don't think it's any different feel than Monster Hunter Rise.
Maybe Monster Hunter Rise to me is like a. They're both big deals, but Monster Hunter Rise, it just kind of has like a certain allure to it, I suppose. Anyway, I'm just saying that my personal gut feeling, like if we're gonna talk about Sparks of Hope coming out before the end of the fiscal year, I think it could come out February. But I also feel like it could also come out like
it's too big of a seller.
Well, they released.
I want to look up the original. Hold on, Mario plus Rabbids sales. I'm curious.
They did.
I know
release
Ubisoft has published
3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and Bravely Default 2 in February this year.
Because Nintendo likes to put their big. Oh, yeah. Dude, no. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle sold almost 8 million copies.
It's a big seller.
That's not getting like a February release. That's going to be like a major sales period release, like a March that pushes. This is going to push.
Well, when did Rabbids come out? The first
What?
one. Then when did that one come out? Did it came out like in August?
Well, sure,
2017, right?
But that was also a new idea at the time. You can kind of call it like a new IP. No one knew what it was going to do. They didn't know it was going to sell 7.5.
Well, why does February have to be a bad time for it?
I mean, it's literally on the fringe of being in the top 10 selling Switch games of all time.
Sure. Well, my point is that Nintendo released 3D World plus Bowser's Fury during that time, and I'm pretty sure that game has had strong sales.
Yeah,
in
February. Probably
February.
did. I don't actually know what the upcoming sales for that is. I'm sure Nintendo's put them somewhere, so I'm sure.
You want to know what I think? I think as long as they release it, it's going to sell well. Like I don't think the timing matters that much. Now, if you release it the same day as Breath of the Wild 2, that might hurt things a little bit.
Well, I mean that's anything.
Or say they announced Super Mario Galaxy 3, then but.
But I think the point I'm trying to make is, you can release Splatoon 3 anytime it's going to sell well. Release Zelda anytime it's going to sell well. We can make that argument on any game that's going to sell well, but what do they traditionally do with the games they know are going to sell well? They put them in time periods where they want to push Switch sales. They know Sparks of Hope, they got the trailer views. They have the prior game sales. They know that's pushing sales the way Monster Hunter did. They're going to put that in a period where they're trying to push unit sales. They're not just going to release it in a random month that isn't around some major financial goal, I guess I'll say. By the way, this isn't me saying like Pokemon Legends Arceus is being sent out because sent out in a random month. Nintendo usually has a big game come out in January, and that could be the big game for January because they like to stem the tide of the usual sales dip after December.
It also comes out in late January, so that could kind of hold things over for February too. Yeah. I'm not saying there won't be something else in February, but they won't necessarily.
February could be like I don't even know.
Kirby.
Maybe Kirby could be a sports story could come out then. Just something like that's smaller that might sell a million.
Could be maybe DLC, like maybe DLC for Monster Hunter Rise comes out in February.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I keep mentioning DLC for Monster Hunter Rise. I'm talking like the paid DLC. Like there's going to probably be an eventual like an expansion.
The paid stuff. The big updates. Or this is something we haven't even talked about. Animal Crossing's due a massive update. That could be February.
Maybe. I don't really know.
It could be this year for all we know. I mean, everyone's been really mad at them for not doing any big updates yet, and it's like, well, I mean, they added swimming and diving. That to me, that was kind of a bigger update. But That was a while ago at this point. So.
So my biggest thing about the September Direct, whenever I talk about it, is that what it's gonna do, it's gonna tell us everything about this year, and then it's gonna start to sort of tell us about what's happening in the beginning of next year, basically leading up to March. And then we might get one other game that will come out at some point later in 2022. Like that's what it's gonna.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's
They
what
end
will
it
happen.
with
Maybe
the future's
two.
amazing.
but-
Go. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Like the Luigi's
Yeah.
Mansion 3, like they revealed that in the September Direct, and it came out the following year, later into the year. So like, I think we'll learn about the February and March games, whatever those are. That's when we'll learn what they are. And when they do not show Breath of the Wild 2, people will be like,
Which,
"Oh,
by
it's
the
coming
way,
out summer."
I don't think it's being shown, but I mean, if they do and they say it's coming March, I mean, okay, Nintendo, you have shocked me
if it's
again.
coming out March,
you have
we're gonna learn.
surprised me again. You have made me excited. I'm going to go into hibernation and wake up in March. But
Right.
that I'm not gonna dismiss as possible, folks. I don't think it's going to happen. But that's what's going to make it all the more shocking if it does, because nobody expects, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people actually think it will. I think we're seeing that game.
I think
again
people have
till
just
E3
fallen
next
in
year,
love
but-
with the idea of it being like a 5-year anniversary. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Like people just really like that narrative, but I don't think Nintendo cares. I think they're gonna release it when it's ready, and I don't think it's ready.
The Zelda. If any team's going to get the time it needs, it's going to be the Zelda team. So.
Yeah. Also, the thing is, if you want to talk about like patterns, like people see that like it's not really a pattern because it just happened one time. Breath of the Wild came out March, and the reason it came out March is because that's when both the localizations for the Switch and Wii U versions were ready, and when the Switch was ready. Ideally, they wanted Breath of the Wild to come out for the holiday. So
Well,
most
I
of the
have a
time,
feeling Breath of
Nintendo's
the
gonna
Wild
release
would
their
have been a
big.
holiday 2016 game if Wii U wasn't dead. But Wii U was dead, and they wanted it to
Yeah,
launch Switch.
Right.
So.
Like because of circumstances, it was pushed to March.
Mm-hmm.
Under normal circumstances, a big Zelda game is going to come out on the holiday. That's how it always has been. So to predict Breath of the Wild 2 to come out next March,
I'll say this, too,
I don't know.
about saying that. Traditionally, in the history of Nintendo, their best-selling games come out in the holiday period. But then we've seen numerous times on Switch where that's not the case. They
Yeah.
are willing to release their big games pretty much all year long. And honestly, this is just, by the way, this isn't me saying Breath of the Wild is coming in March. Maybe it does. I have no idea. But this is me saying that I don't think we really know when any of these games are actually going to come. And I know we're all just projecting and predicting. But I don't know if we can look at the history of Nintendo traditionally and go, oh, they're going to do this. Because they haven't done that with Switch. They really haven't. Their big games come whenever. And it's actually helped strengthen the platform in a way that I think really only if we're... I don't know how much you pay attention to what Sony does, but that's exactly what Sony does. Their big sellers come out all year long. There's not really we're saving X for the holidays. No,
like maybe they
we'll
have
drop
like
that
one
in
big one per
January.
season or something.
That's
yeah.
why I'm kind of thinking. Honestly, yeah, traditionally Zelda comes out in the holidays, but also, hey, that's traditionally. Look at what we've been doing on Switch. Animal Crossing was early year, second best-selling game on Switch. Technically, Mario Kart was early year, number one selling game on Switch. Splatoon, we dropped that like around the summer, spring, summer. Boom, best-selling, one of the top 5, top 6 games on Switch. It's like they don't really care. They just know their games are going to sell whenever they release them. What they do care is selling them during periods where they are invested in marketing. They're always invested going into the holidays, so there's always usually a big holiday game, which very well this year they might just be letting Pokemon and Mario Party and Shin Megami Tensei just be, yeah, that's fine. That's not a bad holiday by any stretch. A Pokemon remake, Shin Megami Tensei 5's exclusive, and then obviously, what was the other one? I just said it. I mean, you have Metroid 2, obviously, the month before. But the point, they can say that's solid enough. But you notice that like there isn't like that big game that you're like, oh yeah, Mario Party, that's what I was thinking. Where they're gonna go, oh yeah, that game's gonna push units. There's not really that super big one unless you consider Mario Party, which I think people forget how well that game sells. That actually is a system seller, but that's neither here nor there. We don't traditionally look at it that way because we get more excited about Metroid Dread than we do say another Mario Party game. But sales-wise, Mario Party is kind of a big deal for the holidays and actually might outsell Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearls. So setting that aside, I think that we just have to look at the Switch's history and go, they like to have a big game in the summer. They like to have, usually something that's going to, or at least something they think will sell well to kick off the year. That doesn't always. New Super Mario Bros. U port that beginning of the year. They like there's something they think is going to sell well. Doesn't always.
Legends Arceus is going to sell very well, so I think they got January.
So like
covered.
January might be covered. They might not even be worried about January. But it's kind of like they always kick off the year with something. January is a game they think will sell well. They hope will sell well. New Super Mario Bros. U actually did sell pretty decent.
It did.
So like people are like, oh yeah,
I didn't want that game to
trickled
sell.
sales. It didn't boost. It didn't have the big influx right away, but the trickle down sales of that have been phenomenal. Again, evergreen Nintendo game. It's one of those games that just it wasn't going to sell a lot right away, but it's just over time. You buy a Switch, your kid sees Mario, you buy Mario.
So there's something I want to point out. I want to go back to Splatoon 3 again. Sorry, but it's just
I like
with Splatoon 3. Because we were talking about Smash earlier. With Smash ending, presumably, they're gonna need that game that kind of gets like the regular updates to kind of keep the fan base engaged. And I think that actually strengthens the argument for Splatoon 3 to come out earlier than later. Because Smash is ending this year.
Sure.
So at least on the record, it's ending this year in terms of like big content updates. So they're gonna need another game like that
this year. Either way, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
I think he's ready to move on.
So getting Splatoon 3 out sooner than later, I think, is important. So that kind of, to me, sort of strengthens the idea of a March release.
And you could argue
3.
trying to push Nintendo Switch Online, and I mean maybe they have an online announcement coming up, so then having a game that pushes that too.
That is another thing. Like, if Splatoon 3 is coming out in March, they're going to have a test fire, and they could say, hey, Nintendo Online members can play the test fire, right? And I think it's a good chance Splatoon 3 is a big game for this Direct.
Sure. So setting aside, like we've been spending a lot of time, one game, when's it going to come out? Let's just go. Give me 3 games you think we're going to see at the Direct next month. Forget when they come out. Just what are we going to see besides the games we already know are coming this year? Because I think those are probably all safe bets to appear in some form.
I'm not even sure. Okay, like just games that'll be talked about. So Splatoon 3, either Donkey Kong or Xenoblade 3, not both, one or the other. And I don't think they're going to talk about Breath of the Wild 2. I think Sparks of Hope has a decent chance to be talked about. Maybe it doesn't get like a big sort of feature, but at least like a little quick trailer.
So Eric, you've heard us debating now for like 45 minutes. You got any thoughts? Want to add a couple more to your sports story based on what the games we've been talking about?
I mean, I know just based on rumors from before E3, a Kirby game or 2.
Yeah, we've had a Kirby game every year.
Every year. I completely forgot to mention
and
Kirby.
We haven't had one yet.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Dream Course 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
And then I know the rumors again with the new DK game. I mean, at some point you figure maybe the rumors would be true, but that was all leaning towards E3, so maybe they decided to push it to September.
So I'm gonna okay. So I do think we're getting some major Nintendo game shown that's either announced for next year or will be a new announcement for next year. I don't know. It could be Xeno 3 because we've had a lot of recent rumors on that. Obviously, Donkey Kong rumors have been going around for a while, and it kind of sort of feels like if that game exists, it's done. It's just like Bayonetta 3. I think Bayonetta 3 is pretty much done, and I think it's just a bullet they're keeping in the chamber, deciding when the best time is to release or announce or whatever. Donkey Kong's 40th anniversary would have made a lot of sense, but they didn't really do that. At least maybe they end up doing it, and they say it 40th anniversary, but we'll see. Because that could be why, by the way, didn't get much for Zelda's 35th. Oh, because we're going to get Donkey Kong 40. We're getting, they're going to blow out the 40th anniversary.
Watch they announced Donkey
the way
Kong
they did
for
with
December.
Mario. Because they could look at it as, we don't know if it's going to be as popular as Mario, but also, hey, look, DK is it's like the OG mascot. We're going to give it some respect. I don't know if that Nintendo cares about that. They care more about money, but then they didn't really blow out Zelda's 35th anniversary, which could have made them a shitload of money too. So, I don't know. And there was a pandemic and all this crap going on, so you never really know. And we haven't really had, honestly, a lot of Nintendo first-party games even coming out the last couple of years. It's been a really strange time. So yeah, sure, we're gonna get something from Nintendo. Whether it's Splat 3 shown, whether it's a new game shown that we don't know about from Nintendo, maybe it's Monolith Soft's new IP. Maybe that's what gets revealed, and that's gonna be the big March game, and they're gonna push that.
I would love it if it was like a big online game.
I'm gonna throw out a game that hasn't really been talked about a lot lately. Is a third-party game. Has been.
Don't say it.
It was basically confirmed in a leak ages ago. and would be kind of a big deal. Resident Evil Outbreak. That's supposed to be a Switch exclusive Resident Evil game that has the same budget as the Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village. It's supposed to have a high budget Resident Evil game that's being made for Switch. And you might go, well, why would they do that? Well, Resident Evil games actually have a long history with Nintendo platforms. And if it's actually really, really good, it might do pretty well. Now, I don't know when it's going to come out. I don't know when they would even think about releasing it, but unveiling it now because it's a third-party major game, like Sparks of Hope, that could use a little bit of a longer run-up for. Could do now. Could be a summer release next year. That could end up being a May
Capcom does
release.
like their early year releases, though. Like, usually we see Resident Evil come out in the first
maybe they
half.
drop it. Maybe they make it a February release and they let it have a whole month.
Well, maybe it's the March game.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's a major company, Capcom, that they work closely with already. Monster Hunter, hello. If Nintendo paid them to have a major Resident Evil game and they told them, we don't want it to be like Revelations. We don't want secondhand crap. Look, you don't want to bring 8 to us. Fine. Because they did do Resident Evil 7 on Switch in Japan. You could stream it. But they're like, we don't want that. We want you to build a Resident Evil ground up for our platform that's on par with the rest of the franchise. And they signed that exclusivity deal. They did that with Monster Hunter Rise. Although Monster Hunter Rise is going to PC. But Monster Hunter Rise was built from the ground up for Switch. That's why the PC version's coming later.
I mean, the Monster Hunter Rise engine is, it's the re-engine, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's the re-engine.
Great, so.
And again, it's the re-engine. Look what they did with that. What do you think they can do with Resident Evil built?
And what's interesting is that Rise is a game that is a little bit more open, right? Resident Evil games are more close corridors, so like visually, this game
it could be awesome.
Really
people might even say,
I
prefer this over Village. I don't know. That's going a bit far, but it's
a lot of people prefer Rise over World.
Built from the ground up for Switch on the RE engine. Again, this isn't even coming from like Rumorville. This came from a data mine leak last year that this game exists. So, why not unveil it now? Yeah. There's not going to be any other major third-party game, I think, in the show that's going to overshadow a new Resident Evil. They don't have a current Resident Evil to advertise anymore.
I agree that this is a good time to announce it, actually.
Again, not coming this year. Yeah. I think it's 2022, but...
Not to mention, if we go back to last year, they announced Monster Hunter Rise a little bit earlier, I think, but they announced it the year before. No, it wasn't that far off.
Yeah, I think they announced it...
Well, but last year is when they announced Monster Hunter Rise, around this time. Like, well, they had a Monster Hunter Direct in September, but there might have been, I think there was 2 Monster Hunter Directs.
Yeah, I'm saying that because Monster Hunter came out in March, and it was announced, I think, was it announced September before? Can't remember. It was announced the year before, but I can't remember.
It was announced in one of the Direct Mini Partner Showcases. I want to say it was either the second one or the third one.
Yeah.
It might have been announced in September.
Yeah, I feel like that was part of that mini partner
It was
showcase.
announced in September.
I think it was the mini partner showcase. I think it was like the big game that was in it.
Yep, that was it. It was in
September.
So
it was announced in September. Resident Evil Outbreak now released in March.
To come out, the timing
I mean,
is
even
like,
if it's not March, I just kind of think if
Right.
that game's real, if that leak happened, if it didn't get canned, and it really is this high-budget Resident Evil game, they're going to want it to hit in the heyday of Switch. We're still in the heyday of Switch. I feel like it's time, and it probably could sell. You look at the Revelation series. The Revelation series actually sold all right on Nintendo platforms, and
those games
they were
like
B-tier
pretty
Resident Evil games.
By comparison.
They were B-tier Resident Evil games, right? They were made by they weren't high budget, but the thing about this and what was in all the documents is that this is a high budget one. This has the same budget as 8, and if that's true, which is insane because 8 had a huge budget, but I could believe that from Capcom.
People like horror games on Switch.
Capcom and Nintendo have a very good relationship and have made a lot of money together. Capcom has literally made Zelda games. Like, Capcom and Nintendo have a long history together. And
it'll be interesting. I
Switch
would like it to be over the shoulder.
Switch is the de facto platform in Japan. Resident Evil is going to outsell Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil Outbreak will outsell 8 in Japan on Switch. Period. Because Switch is so dominant.
But how do you want the gameplay to be? Did we see any information on the gameplay, or do you just know?
There was some stuff. This guy like Dusk Golem, who's a Capcom leaker. He leaked a whole bunch of the Monster Hunter Rise stuff too. Has put out some things. how the project originally started as like a Next Revelations game, and then like Nintendo kind of came in and said like, hey, like no. You can use some of the characters and continue, try to connect stories if you want, but you're not calling this Revelation 3. You're going to do more. You're going to put more work into it, and I don't really know. Like I think okay, if it's going to have like Jill or whatever, it's going to have people from fine. I don't really know. Resident Evil games kind of have similar gameplay, but then there's been a lot more action oriented lately, so it's one of those we haven't seen it. So there's just a lot of speculation.
I'm curious
around what
if it'll be first person or over the shoulder.
Don't know. I'm assuming if they're going to use characters from Revelations that it's going to be third person. But by third person can work. You can have a high budget third person. I mean, Resident Evil 4 is one of the best selling Resident Evils of all time, and that's exactly what that is. So we don't know. It's a game we don't know a lot about, but it was in a leak. This isn't even we need rumor mongers. No, this was in a Capcom leak that was completely legit.
There is another big third party announcement that I think there's a really good chance it's in this direct actually. That's the Grand Theft Auto trilogy remaster. Yeah, it'll come out for the platforms, but they can conceivably announce it first for Switch.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
It's supposedly coming out this year too.
It's supposed to be coming to Switch, and then, I know everyone in the world's been waiting for GTA 5 to come. I think the boat has sailed on that. I'm pretty sure. I mean, GTA 5 is, again, it's like a Nintendo game. It's completely evergreen. It's even better than Nintendo games. It's freaking 100 million sale. Like, the thing just doesn't stop selling.
Monster.
But I don't know that. I would love to say that GTA 5 would be a huge reveal too, but it would be a huge reveal. I think the boat has sailed on that. As much as I've argued that GTA 5 could still come to Switch, they could still make the online work. They could. It's not a question of could. I think it's a question of desire from Rockstar to do that, and I just don't think they have desire. And they have 100 million copies sold. Reason to be like, you know what? We did that without having to be on there. We'll give you old remastered games. That's cool, but we're not going to give you.
Well, I think there's steps, right? So like, if they announce this remaster pack, maybe Nintendo has a deal where they announce it in the direct, right? Where so it does kind of stand out, even though it's coming out for their platforms, it stands out because they make the announcement in the direct. It does relatively well. I think the recording to Polygon, it's going to be like an eShop or digital release only, so it's not even like that big of a deal, but it's something, right? And if it sells better on the Switch than the other platforms, then Rockstar will be like, oh, okay, they'll take that data, and then maybe they decide to port something else, maybe eventually GTA 5. Or, maybe eventually they just are willing to bring the next new one day and date, or kind of like how Bethesda has treated the Doom series a little bit, moving forward at least. Or it becomes a situation like with Resident Evil or Monster Hunter where like, hey, look, we have this bigger one already available for their platforms, but we think it would make more sense just to make a ground up version for Switch. But that's probably years down the road.
Yeah. And at
which point we're talking about the next Switch.
It would have to be the next platform, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap up the podcast there. We've been going for a while here. I want to thank everyone who's been here live. I want to thank Eric, who probably looked bored out of his mind the last hour.
I mean, I had one game that we actually didn't touch on at all, and I don't think we've seen or heard about anything since its announcement, is Project Triangle Strategy.
Triangle Strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that I
completely
expect to see.
My mind.
Yeah, I think I kind of expect to see Triangle Strategy here.
In this direct, yeah.
I kind of expect to see it. Well, again, it doesn't come out till next year, but I mean, it's like
seen much from
good
it,
point.
if at all.
Well, I mean, we have when it was announced.
Well, yeah, but
it seems like a really likely game to show off.
Yeah,
they usually
like it's a third-party game. It's Square. They're gonna like just toss it in there for like a little quick. Oh, and remember we have this game coming, and then then move on.
They might announce another demo too.
Yeah, it could be a demo announcement too. I can't forget they did do that for Octopath. So,
so sorry to.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna contribute.
In the wrap up.
Cut me off.
I think that was a good thing to point out.
Thank you guys so much for doing it. It's been awesome. Andres Restart. If you guys would like to follow Andres Restart, please do. Go down to the description. Let's go. Let's get them to like, I don't know, 20K by the end of the year. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's the crazy goal.
Let's give them the 20K. Get crazy goal.
Double
I have a goal of 100K by the end of the year, and that's equally crazy. So let's just be crazy together. Yeah, if you enjoyed his debates and his conversation with us on this podcast, seriously, he has his own podcast on Sundays where he does the same thing with other people, and he has his own videos and stuff that he does as well. So please go check him out. He has very different takes than I do on things, as you can see, which is why I love having him on as a guest. We agree on a lot of things, but then also it's fun to disagree and have fun. Do you have any upcoming content you maybe want to tease for people to be like, oh yeah, what's he got coming out?
So tomorrow, maybe if I finish it in time before work, I may have a little discussion about the long-awaited peak year for the Nintendo Switch. So, which, by the way, our podcast on Sunday kind of got my brain sort of thinking a little bit more about it. So
I'm sure it did. That's the way podcasts go sometimes. It gets content ideas and percolation.
That's where ideas are born.
Yeah, that's why.
That in the bathroom.
They do. So thank you guys. So yeah, go check them out on Twitter and YouTube. I got links down in the description. AndresRestart. It's easy to find. Type in the search, you'll get them. Eric, you can find him on Twitter at emo8790. You can find me on Twitter at NintyPrime. I think I have links to those down in the description. If I don't, naughty. If I don't have links to my own stuff, that's just really weird. I'd say you can find us anywhere podcasts are heard, but I mean, let's be honest, it's been like 7 episodes now that aren't up. So I will tell you this. I am making you guys a solemn promise. By the next podcast episode, all the missing episodes will be up on iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere else. And I'm making you this promise because I know I'll have the time to do it because my kids start school next Tuesday. So when they go to school, I'm going to sit down for like 2 hours and just get all the episodes up. So if your notifications get spammed with a bunch of episodes and you got like 15 hours of this podcast to listen to, you're welcome. I guess I just set up your workout for the whole week for all you people that like to work out and listen to the podcast. So, so I will get it up before the next one, and then I don't want to promise that from now on everyone will appear the next day after it happens. That's a goal of mine to next day have the audio version up. But I do know there's a lot of people that watch the video version or come in the comments and are always asking, hey, when's the audio version going to go up? And it's like, I get it. People have preferred ways they want to listen, especially when you're streaming from your phone. You don't always want to stream videos because data and all that stuff. I totally understand. So I do apologize for that for people that prefer the audio version. Just to be honest, I'm going to be honest, I just was lazy. That's all it was. I was always working on the next video, the next content, and getting all busy. And then I'm just like, oh, I already did the podcast. I'm good. I'll worry about next week's. And then it's like, oh, wait. Audio. Whoops.
I don't know if I would call it laziness because you're always working. It's just kind of like...
it's just I'm not being considerate to the 500 people that I know for a fact listen to the audio version every week. It's like, that's not an insignificant number of people. That's 500 people. Like, I should be considerate that they want... And by the way, I can't grow the audio version on other platforms if I don't put it on the platforms. So
fair enough.
So I'd appreciate if you go review
always
me on
ask me
iTunes and give me a good rating for not posting my podcast.
Balls.
All right, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all the super chats and stuff we got earlier. You guys are awesome, and we'll catch you in our next podcast next week, where we'll have probably a completely different special guest until I message AndresRestart last minute and go, hey, are you available? Because,
I'm in the country, so probably.
All right. Catch you guys later. Peace out, everyone.
Bye.
And we're still live. Hi. Now we're not. Now we're good.